Oh, I thought we were going hot mics. At 4:35. This meeting is called in accordance with Government Code Section 54950 et sequitur and Education Code Section 35140 et sequitur at the District Office at 1301 East Orange Loop Avenue, Placentia, California. We will have an opportunity for the public to provide input at this time. If anybody wants to make a comment, please bring a blue card to Mrs. Newton. And our closed session tonight will be discussing 3.1, public employee discipline, dismissal, suspension, release, leave, assignment, non-reelection, non-reappointment, resignation, reinstatement pursuant to Government Code 54957. So it looks like we have one.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have one speaker speaking on 3.1 on the agenda. Linda Cohn, please approach the podium.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am speaking on the one agenda item. I'm assuming this item concerns the employment status of Dr. Isaac Gates. I'm asking the same question I've asked a lot of times. What has Dr. Gates done? More important, what has the leadership team of Chernus and Gates done? I want to present to you three things that have just emerged in the last couple of months. The LCAP report that you're considering tonight confirms a stunning reversal of an 8-year enrollment decline. 22,705 students is 400 more than the 2024 projection. That truly is significant under the leadership team of Chernus and Gates. A recent report by Renee Gray reported that we're ahead of our 3-year plan with the achieving LCAP goals in a number of key areas. And then finally, we have just released independent audit, that details the current financial health of this district is quite good thanks to the conservatism of our about-to-be former leadership team. That, along with a long list of accomplishments and others that we've talked about, clearly show that Placentia-Yorba was poised to become a lighthouse district with academic achievement, innovative programs, and fiscal stability under our leadership team. That's what we do know. Let's talk about what we don't know. Whatever happened to that forensic audit that was promised us during the campaign to uncover corruption that Chernus was guilty of? Whatever happened to the investigation conducted by the expert attorney that again was designed to reveal the crimes of these two men? Who really stole that $1.9 million from the Valencia High School cafeteria? Couldn't have been Dr. Chernus, because he increased the cafeteria fund to $15 million and presented a plan that ended decades of inaction by previous administrators. And oh, by the way, I've always wondered why Superintendent Rick Lopez canceled summer school in 2022 that Dr. Chernus reinstated. I can think of one thing Dr. Chernus and Gates did not do, which may be the real reason why this board majority wants new and different leadership. I thank Sam Mavoyich, who I believe was your campaign manager, President Anderson, for this article that appeared in the Orange Juice. This article I urge all of you to read. It's extremely important information from Sam Moyevich, but it raises one basic question. Is Placentia-Yorba about to become a lighthouse district for transgender rights?
Thank you, Ms. Cohn.
Thank you. Okay, that is the end of our public comment, and we will adjourn to closed session at 4:40. Okay, we're going to reconvene to our regular session at 5:19. And report out of closed session is the board took action to approve the request made by the outgoing superintendent to waive the 45-day resignation notice during his employment agreement and approve the outgoing superintendent's resignation to be effective April 30th, 2025. A motion was made by Carrie Buck and a second by Tricia Quintero, and the vote was unanimous. Okay, can you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will do a roll call. Mrs. Blades, are you here?
Present. Here.
Mrs. Quintero?
Here.
Mr. Frazier?
Here.
Mrs. Buck?
Here.
And I am also here, so everyone is here. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the April 22nd, 2025 Board of Education agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Buck, a second by Mrs. Quintero. We have to take that by roll call. Mrs. Blades?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Frazier?
Aye.
Mrs. Buck?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, public comment. The audience members wishing to address the board during the public comment segment of the agenda are reminded to fill out a public comment form available in the foyer and turn it in prior to the board holding public comment. The board bylaws do not allow for forms to be submitted once the presiding officer calls for public comment. Public comments are expected to abide by Board Policy 1312, Civility Policy, which promotes mutual respect, civility, orderly conduct among district employees, parents, and the public. This policy is not intended to deprive any person of his or her right to freedom of expression, but only to maintain, to the extent possible and reasonable, a safe, harassment-free environment. Individuals are reminded that they are expected to abide by the civility policy at all times while on district property, including but not limited to hallways, restrooms, lobbies, and parking lots. Any individual who, during a school board meeting, disrupts with violence or threatens to disrupt with violence school office operations or threatens the safety of any individual attending or participating in the board meeting will be reported to the police immediately. Additionally, if there are any disruptions or interferences of the board's ability to conduct its meeting, the disruptive parties will be given one warning. If the disruption continues, you will be informed that the board president has found you disruptive in violation of Penal Code 403, Education Code 32210, and the board president will order you removed from the meeting under Government Code 54957.9 and 54957.95. If removing one or several disruptive parties does not restore order, the board president will exercise their authority to clear the room in accordance with Government Code 54957.9. Education Code 220 prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability, gender, gender identity, gender expression, nationality, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic that is contained in the definition of hate crime set forth in Section 422.55 of the Penal Code, including immigration status. Is there anyone here? Okay, there's no cards. I'm going to skip the rest then. So now we are to action item 11.1. And this is going to be, I guess I need a motion before we can start.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Education consider to use a search firm or a facilitator to assist in the identification of a new superintendent for the PWIL USD.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Frazier and a second by Mrs. Buck. Okay. Did you have any comments about that?
I'm happy to discuss or answer questions related to the process. The purpose here, however, would be to direct me to pursue a RFP, a request for proposal, from any executive search firm that would want to apply, and then arrange for them to present at an upcoming board meeting, depending upon how many proposals the board would like to consider.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the best time of year to hire superintendent? Like, what should our timeline be? Should we be quickly doing it right now, or should we be waiting a few, like, what are the pivotal times?
Yeah, so the most common time to pursue a superintendent search is the spring, early in the spring. So most superintendents, if they're going to leave their district, as I did last June, will announce early in the school year, usually when the school year is beginning, and then the board typically will listen to proposals and then hire a search firm or do it internally, depending upon the size of the district, so that the person could be in place starting July 1. That gives the district an opportunity for a full search, which would be somewhere between 3 and 5 months, depending upon the nature of the input. So really, the first decision is how much input do you want to gather, and how do you want to gather that? There's surveys, of course, which typically do not target your entire population. Then there's more targeted surveys, but there's also focus groups and ways to do it that ensures that you are listening to all the voices of your constituents, and that obviously takes a little bit longer. So given that, you could say, well, given our interest in gathering input from our community and the community's interest in providing input, so let's say it would be a 4-month process. So if you went out sometime in the next month, say May, you wouldn't have a lot of time with school ending to gather input, but you would have the month of May. And if you focused on gathering input in the month of May, then the rest of the process would start whenever you gather the information. But again, you have to decide, is that enough information? Is that long enough information? Then everyone's out on summer break, and then you really have to wait until school begins again. And you're also getting people at a different place, right? So there's a certain bias to when you actually gather information based on that time of the year. So that's another decision. To answer your question, Trustee Buck, the question is that it's beyond the best time, because this is the time that most districts will pursue their next superintendent. The next best start time would be January 1, which would give the incoming superintendent an opportunity to let her or his district have time to find her or his replacement. And besides, for most superintendents would answer this question, you say, when's the best time to start? It would be January. Coming in January is a great opportunity to come and listen and learn. Everything is in place. You get to really observe and get to understand the district's processes and get to know everybody and really focus on building relationships as opposed to all the planning and all the processes that typically begin a school year. So first question the board needs to answer is just how much input do you want to gather, and how comprehensive do you want that to be? Second question is, do you want to target a start date? And if so, when would that date be? And the proposals could address those questions that you have, knowing that they're going to be somewhat limited in the scope dependent upon just how quickly this process goes. So let's say the RFPs went out in the next couple days, and then you had 10 days for them to get back, and then we have them present, let's say, at the May when's it, May 6th, the next board meeting, right? The May 6th meeting, and then one was hired, then they would have between May 6th and the end of the school year to begin gathering input. That's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time. Okay, did I answer that sufficiently? Okay. I over-answer,
No, not
trustee
at all.
Frazier.
No, that was helpful. So it's been, in the past, we've done like community evaluation, like survey, focus groups, all of that kind of stuff. And there was a lot of great information that came out of it. We haven't done that in a number of years, and we have a number of new people. So I think it would be worth doing that and getting some information.
Is that handled by the search firm?
Typically,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah. So they could come in, do all of the focus. I kind of like the idea of focus groups versus surveys, because the surveys, there's always challenges with those on how you ask the question to get the response you want. So
We can do both, though.
I think that we want to get as much information
Yeah.
as we can to get a
Hybrid.
comprehensive idea of what the community would like us to do.
I really like the idea of focus groups and getting, direct feedback from our community and including our employees, and so that we can find the right person. So, I know our last search, the questions were very limited, and it was almost, like, I don't know, it wasn't.
If you
I
have
liked
more,
it.
if you have more
Generic.
time,
Generic.
you can
It
do a
was
lot
very
more.
generic, and I really would like to see what the needs of our community are, and how, what we value as a community, and how we can direct our superintendent and find the right person. So I kind of like that, a little bit more time.
I don't want to rush the process.
Yeah, I agree. Coming from a parent side and a teacher side, it's always nice to be able to give your input and know that you've been heard. Survey plus focus group would be great, like you said, because then you could hone in on those specific questions. But yeah, the more information, the better, because I think that just helps us make the best decision.
Yeah, and I think, by doing those, it will really target our questions, the interview process, what things we bring up, and what we're looking for.
So as we put together an RFP and we ask search firms to come, I've been involved with a couple of them in different ways. One that was more driven by the search firm, one that was more driven by the board. In my opinion, I would like it to be more driven by the board, so that we're looking at questions ahead of time, where we have more input. We can sit with the names and that for a while. And there's even been times where a board will go out and visit, if it's a sitting superintendent and it's okay and they know all of that, like it's, not, that you actually go and you talk to the community and you talk to people there. So the more we know ahead of time and the more we can be involved in selecting, I think the more we have buy-in, and hopefully all can agree and come to the same final result.
So, may I, Madam President?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what the RFP would want to outline, those specific, because a typical search, it almost always has a site visit, but that's the finalist, really. Short of that, it depends on the type of search. You request the level of comprehension. So it's really up to you to say that we want to be involved in this step, this step, this step, this step. And that's how I will write the proposal accordingly. And of course, if you always backed off, you could always back off. But when they present, we want them to present exactly what that search would look like, knowing that there's going to be surveys as well as focus groups, and that we want to ensure that all voices in the community are heard, including students.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I usually have focus groups, because you definitely want to get the student voice is critical. And then the board, then the search team also will work with the board each step along the way as applications come in, as far as vetting those applications so that the board has more involvement, as opposed to a process in which they might put them in 3 tiers, for example, and then they may make the decision that we're going to bring forth these 5 candidates, and the board might want additional involvement in that.
I have heard that there have been requests from sitting boards that are in the middle of a search to the search firm to reach out to a certain sitting superintendent and ask if they would apply or ask if they're interested. And that search firm said no, they wouldn't do that because they were the ones that originally had worked with that board and placed that superintendent in that spot. I don't want that to be anything that holds us back. So if they're not going to be reaching out to anybody, or if they won't reach out to somebody that they've placed because they don't, for whatever reason, I am not interested in that. I want anybody that would be the best fit and the most appropriate for us, regardless of where they are. And I don't want the search firm to stop reaching out if the board asks, or if anybody out there, it would be a good candidate for us.
But can you appreciate ethically that a search firm would be like, well, we
I think
just
maybe in
helped
a
that-
time frame, like if it was in, the last year or so, but if they were there for a number of years and
Yeah, I don't know what the
It's-
specifics of the
it's-
search.
it
It'll
was a
depend on the
question
search
like,
firm.
could you reach out to them and see if they would be interested? That superintendent can always say no, thank you, but they didn't want to even ask. So I want them to feel like they can ask anyone. That's all.
Within reason.
Within reason. Not if they were placed last year. That would
Yeah,
be
exactly. I was
wrong.
like,
But the
Or one that
superintendent
files
would
now,
hopefully
like
say
we're gonna
no.
snag.
Yeah, I'm sure that could be cautiously worded in the RFP.
Thank you.
Mrs. Blades, did you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I guess we'll just figure out who the RFP, brings in, because I think we have probably a couple conflicts of interest with a couple of search firms that have been used in the past by the prior boards. So I think we'll just wait to see what the RFP brings in.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we need to take a vote. Mrs. Blades?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Frazier?
Aye.
Mrs. Buck?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Vote is unanimous.
Okay, I have my direction.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we move to the study session, because of our lack of power, et cetera, do we want to postpone this till next Tuesday? Or do we want to move on tonight?
I'm okay with tonight. It's just a matter of the presentation. That's the only.
How does the
thing, right?
team feel?
Yeah.
You don't want to. You don't want to wait. You don't want to postpone and wait another week and tweak your presentations. Add some
Set the
new
tables up again.
graphics.
Yeah.
No. Some new gifts in there, and we'll be like, oh. No. Do we have any, Olivia? Okay.
Okay, well, we're going for memorable then. Okay, here we go.
Oh, you're welcome. Come on over here. He don't bite.
He said his is USB-C, so this should charge it.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna move.
Here, I'll just put it right Just turn on my video recording so that everything's recorded.
Okay, no worries. Oh. I'm like, whatever you feel like doing, I'm good.
Not necessary. No, those aren't for me. Who's dual fisting over there?
I want to keep hitting both of them. Share that. You have to push the button.
Okay.
Hot mic.
Okay, we will begin our study session, and because the notes were on the computer, and there's no computer and no Wi-Fi, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Young, and I think that is the correct answer.
That is correct. Okay, well, thank you. Good evening, President Anderson, members of the board, Superintendent Musarino, Executive Cabinet, and District Leadership. Thank you all for joining us this evening for today's study session of the draft of the Local Control and Accountability Plan. This will be one to remember. Okay, to begin, I'd like to just share a very brief background on the Local Control and Accountability Plan, otherwise known as the LCAP, moving forward. The local control funding formula and LCAP were enacted over 10 years ago by the state to ensure accountability, transparency, and local engagement. The purpose of the LCAP and revised funding structure was to support districts with closing achievement and opportunity gaps for English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and foster youth, while also addressing the 8 state priorities for all students. The LCAP is a continuous improvement cycle, and we are currently in the midst of the first year of our 3-year plan. After reviewing our state and local data, analyzing our progress this year, and engaging in feedback sessions with our educational partners, we have drafted revised and new actions for your feedback today. After today's study session, our district leadership team will continue to make adjustments to our LCAP and will bring forward a final draft for your approval in June. And now I'm going to invite Ms. Joan Velasco to provide an overview of the district's budget, in case you haven't gotten enough lately.
All right. Well, I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about our budget. Before 2013-14, there was no LCFF, local control funding formula. And so when the state would give us money, they gave us money for very specific purposes. In 13-14, the LCFF came in, which is basically giving local control to school districts. And so as you can see on this slide here, this is the breakdown. We have a base amount that we can use district-wide, $256 million. Our supplemental money from local control funding formula is $24.6 million, and that is to be used for our unduplicated kids. We have some state funding of $66.9 million, federal funding of $10.2 million, and local funds of $8 million. We also received $500,000 for a transfer from our Child Development Fund. So we have a total revenue for next year currently budgeted at $367 million. Our budgeted expenditures right now are $400.5. And these are our second interim numbers that were presented to the board the last time. If you take a look now at the next slide, this is just a picture of really what this looks like, so you can really truly understand how much of our money comes from the local control funding formula from the state. So we use these to develop our LCAP, and so now I will turn it back.
Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to provide a brief data overview to ground our discussions today. You'll recall that district leadership provided a very thorough data overview of our progress in all of our LCAP metrics in February. Of course, we will begin with the California School Dashboard, which is the accountability and continuous improvement system by which all schools and districts are measured by in the state. This shows the performance of all of our districts, schools, and student groups on a set of state and local measures that are meant to assist us in identifying our strengths, weaknesses, and areas in need of improvement. You may recall that the dashboard displays performance based on 2 factors. It's your current data on the measure, as well as your improvement or lack of improvement from your prior year results. And where those 2 measures intersect is where we receive our performance level or color. Our desired colors are cooler, with blue and green being our highest performance levels, and orange and red being the lowest performance levels. So when we examine our district's California dashboard results, we have much to be proud of. As a whole, we continue to perform very strongly as compared to districts throughout the county and state. In this past year, we improved our performance in the areas of chronic absenteeism, our suspension rate, and graduation rate by increasing by 1 performance level in each of the areas. And we maintained our strong performance in our college and career readiness, our English language arts achievement, and mathematics achievement. However, as has been previously discussed, our English learner progress declined by 1 performance level this past year, likely correlated to our incredibly high reclassification rate. To address this, we've adhered to our English Learner Master Plan by increasing our district-wide awareness of our English learners, analyzing our LCAP data, working closely with our special education partners on supporting our dually identified students, and we have poured resources into providing GLAD and ELD training to our teachers throughout the district. We have also increased our community engagement efforts this year in order to partner with our families to raise student achievement. Our English learners will remain our district-wide focus heading into next year. Finally, on the dashboard, we continue to meet all of the state's local indicators. Now, while our overall district performance is high across almost every measurement, we find that despite great strides made these past few years, achievement gaps continue to persist for our English learners, foster youth, and socioeconomically disadvantaged students. Thus, we have revised some of our existing actions and added new actions to strive to better meet the needs of our unduplicated pupils. Which leads us to a discussion of our district's LCAP goals. As an overview, you'll recall that we have established 10 goals now for our LCAP in order to tell the story of the educational advantage that all students receive in our district. Our first 2 goals pertain to all students and are tied to our innovative, rigorous, and relevant educational program, as well as the basic services that we provide to all students in order to ensure their success. The next 5 goals pertain to our unduplicated student groups and provide a laser focus on the achievement gaps that persist amongst them. As is required, we dedicated our 8th goal toward our lowest performing student groups and sites. Also, as required, we dedicated a goal to El Camino Real High School, who receives equity multiplier funding through the state due to their high socioeconomically disadvantaged status as well as non-stability rate. And finally, this year, we added a 10th goal that outlines the innovative ways in which OCSCS is meeting the needs of their unduplicated students that go beyond what is outlined by the district goals. You will note that no funding has been allocated to the actions for this goal, as those costs have already been accounted for within the previously stated goals. So at this time, we are going to open up the floor to facilitate a discussion on all the proposed actions in our LCAP, beginning with goals 1 and 2, which pertain to the academic achievement of all students. I want to thank in advance Dr. Holloway for helping to capture the feedback received on the screen. And you will see, when we switch to that document now, sure, and you'll see on the screen that any changes. It's okay. Renee wanted to know who was going to drop this here.
Oh, that was my question. Who's going to drop something? I thought he.
Who had Carrie in the pool? Who had Carrie?
Usually it's in there. Who's going to go? This is water.
It's okay.
We just dropped a
Splash
soda, it's okay.
All right. It's just been a fun day. Just keep rolling with it. Yeah. All right. So as you can see, as we move through each goal, you will have at the top of the screen, it will be a snapshot again of our data, and so that we can ground our conversations and our achievement gaps. And then you'll see also listed is a summary of each action, and any action that has been revised, struck through, or added is denoted in royal blue on the screen. And so I know in the binders they're not color-coded. However, we did provide these resources in advance digitally, but and then from there she'll notate anything that's being asked or suggested on the screen so that we can, don't worry about it. Everybody drop 1 item in the mush pot. Yeah.
That's a big sacrifice.
Okay. All right, so we'll begin now with any feedback, questions, or suggestions that you may have as they pertain to goals 1 and 2. And again, this is really goals pertaining to all students. So anything that pertains to all students that you would like for us to be aware of.
Okay, going through this, it talks about arts, media, and entertainment pathway. What are we've been talking about this for a couple of years, 1.12.
1.12, thank you, that's very helpful.
1.12. And I'm just, and it's on page 41 and 38. It's on every, you keep repeating, but different subject matters.
The arts, entertainment, the performing arts pathway.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, just as noting that each year it has been a desire of the board for us to explore a performing arts pathway, and it's something that we do continue to explore. In discussions with our previous VAPA coordinator, as well as district leadership, there was concern that if we designated one high school, for example, the performing arts school, that it would now dilute the performing arts programs at all of the high schools. And so it was not recommended by our VAPA coordinator at the time. However, with that vacancy now and us consulting with the Orange County Department of Education specialists, we'll be able to continue to revisit that. We do offer really robust performing arts pathways in each of our schools. So really we just need more clarification on it. Is it our desire to designate one high school as the performing arts pathway?
I love that we have such robust performing arts, and it's getting better as we have music instruction down lower and lower. So just having that at every site would be great, and just to build on it. And I don't maybe with the investigation is how do we identify it and name it throughout all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Could it possibly be explored almost like, I guess, when you get like a letter in a sport or like band or things like that, they have to take so many classes at that school, whatever they're at, in certain areas to qualify for like a seal, like the seal by literacy, maybe a pathway kind of seal on their diploma, something like that, to where it's not pulling people from schools, but
Okay.
it's kind of making,
Are offering, you can graduate from this pathway if you take these additional courses and you complete so many courses in this subject.
correct.
Whether it's band or music or art, digital, whatever.
Yeah, because it could be DMA,
It could be,
ceramics. Yeah.
Okay, so creating like our own local, like a cord or exactly like a seal on their diploma, some designation for students who complete a multi-year series in that pathway, whether it's performing arts or visual arts. Dr.
Correct.
Mascherino, were you saying something?
Yeah, just a reminder if everyone could speak into their mics and speak a little loudly, because Trustee Blage is struggling to hear. So whenever
Sorry about that.
it's your turn, please use your outside voices.
How much effort do you think it would take if we're talking about additional graduation pathway?
Mm-hmm.
Am I not talking to you? I'm not turned up. I'll just speak louder.
It's not green, neither of yours. Yeah.
I guess my only question would be, if we go to create a sealed by literacy performance pathway, is the outcome going to be worth the effort? That's another question. I love that we have it. I don't want to move it away from any
Right.
schools at all. I just don't know if that is.
Maybe we do sort of a landscape analysis of where we are with all of it. I'm sure that's available with not too much work. And then to think about, are there streams of, if you talk about performing arts, is there something available all the way through? And then what could potentially be a capstone or a different type of class or project? Maybe it's just performing in the, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
And then look at ceramics and art and visual arts in a similar way, but what is there now and what could we enrich it with? Not create a whole new school, but
Right.
what can we enrich it with to make it just a better, a real pathway?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that would, to answer your question, Trustee Frazier, I don't think that would take too much effort on our part to do. We have really robust programs, and we do have the manpower now too with our additional arts and music funding to be able to refine our programs and really make it a special experience for our students. So
Cool. I just don't want to
that.
burn resources if we don't have to. I mean, we have a pretty good
We're
system
getting-
as we are, but,
Yes.
so, that's my only comment.
A quick and significant announcement. It appears that only some humans actually be on at the same time. So, when somebody else is speaking, turn off. Sorry.
Okay.
We're good at sharing.
Some of them are not today on the call. Here's the turn off.
Okay, also, I was gonna add, maybe, I'm not sure, because arts is not my forte, but if there's some type of like certification that they could work towards. And, in music, I'm thinking, yeah, like a portfolio, or if they can pass maybe something about like music theory, where they, because I'm thinking of like our CTE pathways where they can take them and then they can get Adobe certificates and things like that, but maybe there's something in the arts world as well.
So
they
almost
could-
we'd have to backwards plan and see what the next level requirements are and what they expect them, like if they were to apply for a job straight out of high school, what they would need requirement-wise, and then backwards plan from there of what we would require to get them there.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And then also maybe looking at other performing arts schools throughout the county and seeing what they offer and what their capstones look like. And not that we're going to recreate it, but it would give us some ideas.
Also, why reinvent the wheel if we don't have to?
Yep, definitely. We'll work on that. If anything to add, feel free.
Just to add to that,
I missed some of this because I couldn't hear. So we were talking about the performing arts.
Yes, and not creating a performing arts school or designating a specific school as a pathway, but really trying to enhance what we offer our performing arts students in our district, and coming up with like a capstone experience and like a seal on their diploma or a cord or some similar to what we do with our CTE students.
Right. So I wouldn't be opposed to like just searching out to see if there is some type of a performing arts type school with maybe like an emphasis also in music. Just because with all of these top 39 requests, I have a feeling that we're going to maybe get hit with a charter school that's going to come in and offer like performing arts stuff. So I think we should just keep some of this on like the forefront of our minds that, as the more and more charters are coming in, like if we already offer something that really takes away a lot of, a lot of their momentum to try to come into our district if we offer the programs. So, I mean, I don't know what that would look like, to do that, but it does seem like we have a lot of our kids flocking to the performing arts school in Santa Ana.
Right.
In the whole music thing. So, I mean, I don't think we should maybe be opposed to it, and especially too, I mean, Magnolia is a science academy. Is there a way to like enhance our science programs, or even to like be creating these things so when these charters are looking to come in, like we already offer it. So there's no reason for our parents to be, like pulling the kids from our district and like putting them in these charter schools. That would just be a thought.
Definitely. When we are investigating what this will look like, we will also continue to review and investigate what's offered at the school in Santa Ana. We don't want to give free advertising, but to see what we can create too.
Right. And did we talk, I'm sorry, I don't have any visual, I'm nothing. I'm like blind over here. Have we talked about the English language learners?
No, we're right now on goals 1 and 2, which pertain to all students, and then they're next.
Okay. Okay, and then another thing too is I think as well, like, one thing I've been finding a lot about is like a lot of the military is offering a lot of programs in like the arts, and also like you would never think that like people can specifically go into the military to play band and to play music and to be getting these degrees in some of these programs. And so I don't even know if we should be starting to like really branch out to like, you know, the military and bringing some of these things in. I just like found out in the last couple weeks how huge the music programs are, you know, in the military. Like, you know, the Marines, especially the Marines, and like I think the Navy, things like that. I'm just finding so many, you know, so many things. And I met somebody last week who, you know, she applied, she tried out for the band and also to like some vocal stuff, and they sent her off to school. You know, she made it. She made it past her audition, and like she got 30 college credits in a year just because of like the specialized schools and the specialized colleges that they sent her to. So I don't know too, especially, you know, at the cost of college and, you know, things like that. I don't know if that's another thing we should maybe be trying to partner with, is like maybe broadening the horizons of some of our students who want to take music to the next level, you know, but don't want to be like a starving artist in Nashville or like, you know, starving college student. I mean, these are like some spectacular opportunities that our military is offering.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be something that we talk about with the college and career sites. People have their sites that maybe they can look into as well.
Yeah,
have them
absolutely.
research.
And like when the military, because we have military visits at all of our high schools, but to be really targeted with our performing arts programs and telling the students, come check it out, you might not be aware of these opportunities. That would be good.
Yeah, like who would have thought that, like, you know, when you look at like, okay, like I'm going to go into the Marine Corps, I'm going to go into a certain, you know, place, and that like I'm going to go into the Marine Corps, I just have to make it through 13 weeks of boot camp, but I'm going to be like, you know, part of their vocal team or part of their jazz band or their choir, and like, you know, go around the nation, you know, performing and, you know, performing at, you know, football games and performing for the president, you know, things like that. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that I think that we need to be exploring. So we're hitting, you know, every student has its opportunities, especially those who, you know, maybe want a college degree, but they can't afford it, you know, or just, you know, like I said, just don't know if there's like a pathway for them, you know, past high school. Maybe this is an opportunity.
Definitely.
Okay, moving on, I kind of would like to talk about addressing the drop in the writing prompts in grades 1 through 5.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that as well. I just wanted to know when the rubrics have been updated. Are they recent rubrics? Have they been revisited to kind of see if they're older, maybe updating them?
So 3 years ago, we convened a group of teachers to come together to take a look at our writing rubrics and align them with the CASP metrics so that we could be in alignment with that and also increase the rigor of what was being asked. And with this group of teachers, what we did is also we looked at writing across content areas to ensure that science and social studies were also going to be addressed within the writing rubrics, as we know that some of those content areas tend to trail off with a focus on math and language arts. And so that was 3 years ago that we convened a group of teachers. And so we've gotten some feedback, especially working with writing this year to enhance that so that our English learners who specifically need that work and need that focus can do well on the LPAC. And so that's work that we're going to continue to do this summer, pre-service, and on to next year. And so we have gotten some feedback from the teachers that have participated in the writing professional development this year as to the placement of, you know, the narrative versus the opinion versus informational. And so we need to, again, survey our teachers and find out what the best progression is so that we can get a true test of need as they plan out the year.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I was just wondering. Oh, sorry. Perfect. Thank you.
Is there any specific actions that you guys besides that are going to be taking throughout the year to like add more writing prompts and things like that?
Absolutely. So what we're doing this summer is we are providing professional development to our teachers, specifically in writing as it relates to how it's tested in LPAC. So focusing on our English learners and making sure that writing doesn't necessarily have to be full-blown essays, because the way that it is tested, and we want our teachers and students to work smarter, is that maybe there are writing prompts that could be quick, that could be connected to how it is tested on LPAC, so that this type of writing happens throughout the day and is infused, not just during ELD, but it's during ELA, during science, during social studies. And so that is going to be the focus of the work that we do this summer, going into pre-service, where our teachers are going to have the opportunity to plan out lessons, work collaboratively during the collaboration time of pre-service. And then into next year, we have already secured a contract with Momentum in Teaching to continue the work. They have been really well received by our teachers. We've gotten some great feedback on the responsiveness, the relatability of this, and then our teachers on special assignment are also going to be working in collaboration to lead the sessions in the summer as well. And like I mentioned, the focus is going to be on how can we continue to support our English learners throughout this process in writing, and working on the teacher toolkit for the English learner roadmap.
So you're attributing this decline mostly to our English language learners, is that correct?
Well,
Or
we-
are you seeing it across content when, I think, what is it, 67%?
When we look at the data and the population of students that are impacted, it is our English language learners. And so we've seen that in the LPAC scores, when students get to level 3, they stay at level 3. And so what we're really focusing on is continuing the rigor so that we're actually teaching to the next level of language proficiency, so that we're, leveling up, teaching up to those required standards. And so we feel if the student population that is most impacted are English learners, then we need to give them the tools to be able to reclassify and make progress in writing. And because it's going to be first best instruction practices, this is attributable and applicable to all of our students. They can all benefit from increasing writing rigor.
Thank you, Dr. Leon.
Absolutely.
Question?
I have a question. Are the assessments that we're doing for, like, when we're doing the writing assessments, are they, like, I've had some teachers feel like that they're too close together, that, like, there's too many assessments and there's not enough time in between to, like, really work on the issues. Could that be part of the problem?
So what we've done is we've gotten feedback from our teachers to create the assessment calendar. And so within the assessment calendar, teachers have the opportunity to not only do writing during those, little litmus tests that we get from students. We are encouraging our teachers to give us feedback. And so this coming year, what we have done is we have proposed 2 assessment calendars, and we're getting feedback from our association, from all of our teachers as well. We're going to be sending out a survey so that they can give us feedback on the best timing of the writing prompts.
Unfortunately, with as many forms of writing that they have to do as they get older, it's hard to space those out and give adequate time. That's the challenge of, hopefully, like you said, if you integrate writing throughout subjects, you're getting your most bang for the buck because you're practicing all that. But yeah, with the amount of writing that they have to do, it's really hard to time it, I know.
So I also, too, I was talking with someone about our English language learners, and it was a school district in Washington, and so this person was in charge of, like, the program, the English learners, and she brought them from a 17% to a 67%. And I asked her how in the world did she do that, and she was saying that they use money, I mean, outside sources, like they paid people from the outside to, like, come in and help, but they also, like, were partnering with, like, some of our local nonprofits to come in and help as well. And so I don't know if that's, like, something that we should be thinking about too, like maybe doing something to change with our English learners, because I mean, it's very apparent, you know, throughout this thing that we're still struggling. And it seems like every year we talk about, you know, programs, and we talk about, you know, doing things differently, but it doesn't rise. And so it was just really interesting to hear, you know, that they did have to, like, you know, they had to put like some investment into it, but they brought in like outside sources to work with it, and then like some local nonprofits. I don't know what that would look like, but I mean, to jump up 50%, you know, in your test scores for English learners, I mean, they did something right.
Can you talk a little bit about how you look at each school and each grade level when disaggregated data, and how you how we make it equitable when for those schools that are struggling, or those grade levels that are struggling within those schools? How much diving in do you do versus the overall numbers that we see?
So in relation to writing, when they turn in their writing scores, we have and give that information to our principals too. So we take that data and we do data-driven decision-making with our principals to have those conversations about what they can do as instructional leaders to help support their teachers with it. I know we have robust conversations with our teachers on special assignment. Specifically in response to this, we have now geared our professional development to be cross-content, meaning our math teacher on special assignment is working in direct collaboration with our ELD teacher on special assignment. So when they provide professional development, they are doing it together, so that they're saying this doesn't only exist within ELD, this is something that needs to happen within math as well. And so we have math writing prompts too. And so because we know that the way that students have to explain their thinking is no longer just based on the algorithm that they might know, it has to be an explanation that then also, to get the most honestly, to get the most points when we have CAST testing, students have to not only explain their thinking, but they have to compare data on a chart. So it's not just a matter of saying this is the right answer, it's saying this is the right answer because in comparison to. And so that is, we have really, you know, imparted that onto our teachers, that it's really important to have this be a daily part of their instruction, that it's not no longer just giving the answer, but having students talk about, which is the work we're going to do in pre-service, Mike and I, is to explain that when you have students talk, how they talk is how they will write. How they write is how they will also speak. And so we're trying to build those connections for the work that we've been doing and the groundwork that we've been doing with cross-content articulation and writing. And so we're having those conversations with our principals too, so they can turn around and have those conversations with their teachers. And so when we think about the scores that vary across our schools, it is work that's applicable to English language learners as well as to other students, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students as well. And so they tend to be in duplicate, you know, one and the same, because they target more than one focused student group area. So, I mean, we're doing the best that we can to turn around and build the capacity of our principals to then have those conversations with our teachers, or giving our teachers the opportunity to have those during PLCs. A lot of the work that we've done with professional learning communities has been around taking a look at data, especially during the time that we have writing assessments. Now, turn around and talk about those results, like bring student work samples and designate and collaborate on the scoring. Like, what is your 4 compared to what is my 4, so that we can align and be coherent with our expectations, so.
Yes. That actually, it makes me think of another thing we used to do. We had data walks, and I remember one time even in the district office we did that. What sort of professional development or what direction or training are the principals given? Are they given a specific, these are the data sets we're looking at? Did they provide their own data? How do we help them pull the right information and share it with the teacher so it's effective, and the students and families?
Absolutely. I can give you for example, when we had a professional development session with our principals, and our Melrose principal reached out to say, I want to know more about this because the staff has been asking. They have data days. So a lot of our principals took advantage of the days that they were given to have data discussions and to do learning walks either within the school, outside of the school, within the district, or outside of the district. And so with those days, what they did is they released their teachers to come together to take a look at data. And specifically with Melrose, what they did is that they had the writing progressions. And so the writing progressions were posted all around the room. And the teachers then calibrated the writing, brought student work samples, compared it with Lucy Calkins' work on Writer's Workshop and what some exemplar writing so that they could increase the rigor. And so then teachers did like a learning walk across there, and I was able to participate, which was really invigorating to see the Melrose teachers come together and say, you know what, I need to increase my expectations for my students because what I deemed as a 3 is actually a 2 when we use the rubrics in the writing progression. So that's one example of how the work that we started to do and talk about is coming full circle for a school. And as a matter of fact, another school found out about it and went to go do a visit at Melrose to see, can they collaborate on what your teachers are doing with writing with what my teachers can do with writing, and this is all because of the release days that have been provided to them.
I was just going to add that, like, how do we then take that best practice and share it throughout the district so they can visually see it and the impact of it?
And then I would just say that as a district, the professional development that we provide to our principals on data analysis really is driven through our solution tree contract. They have really helped us to have fidelity to the PLC process. We use their data protocol with our principals, and then we provide data to our principals at each of the data points throughout the year. They have site data folders that we put the data in, and then we dedicate our principal meetings each month to going through the data with the protocol. With Solution Tree this year, they also brought in all their department chairs or their teacher leads to join them in this data analysis, as well as looking at all the standards and how they're aligning their teaching. So we've really made a concerted effort to help our principals be more data literate in these past few years so that they feel comfortable having and leading these conversations at their sites. Additionally, I know that iReady is another source of really robust data at the elementary level, and so Liz also partners to offer trainings to the principals and at the school sites in iReady so that they're fluent in the data and then cater their lessons toward what the data is showing them. And then Jose does the same with Elevation, which is another data tracking system that's used for English learners. And so I would say more than probably ever before, our principals are being trained in data literacy, and data is being provided at their fingertips at every single meeting.
I also wanted to share that during our monthly principal grade span meetings, we find strengths in our schools with what they're doing, and what we do is 4 corners. So we have principals teach each other. And so they prepare presentations or just share practices that they've engaged in, and then our principals get to choose where to go to find out more. And this is how we can also disseminate information about good things that are happening across our schools.
Can we, as we build out through the next year and as whenever appropriate through the year, build in a data walk for the board that's, you know, very comprehensive? I'm a data nut, so this is nothing for me. I want so much more.
Yeah.
So I would love to be able to see what's happening at schools and how do we enrich different things and where are the gaps, and really put some, like, I'd like to see the thought process that's
Absolutely.
happening.
We'd love to invite you all. Take a look.
Okay, my last question, I think, on this, oh, no, I got 2. One is, on the superintendent advisory council meetings, it says that they've been disbanded, and now they're just taking place at each high school. I'm just trying to figure out when that happened and what we're doing, why this is, what the thought process is.
Yeah, they haven't been disbanded. What they have been is decentralized. So the former process was that 5 or so students, we'll say 5, from each school were selected by the principals to come up to the district and then have conversations with the district office in isolation without the principals or administrators just being aware of the feedback that was being given from the students to the superintendent, and then no follow-up action was able to occur because these meetings were happening in isolation. And based off of the stakeholder survey data, in which students were expressing that they weren't feeling as connected with the schools, and that they didn't feel as if there were as much supportive or caring environments in their schools, the decision was made to have the meetings at each high school instead with a more robust representative sample of students. So instead of your 5 best kids coming up to the district, it was every student, every walk of life. We really encouraged the principals to have about 20, 30 students there, to have the principal, assistant principal, and activities director present too, so that they could hear the conversations that we're having. And we shared with them their stakeholder survey data and the trends, and we asked them to identify if they noticed any trends, helping our students to be data literate and aware of what the results of their stakeholder surveys were. And then they identified an area that they wanted to tackle as a school based off of each of their sites' data, what they felt was the root cause of that issue or that decline that they addressed. And then they were working with their principals throughout the year to really try and improve and address that. And so that was led this year, by Mr. Young and Mr. Gray, and then Mrs. Gray and myself were able to attend in the first rounds of them, and then we carried it on at the second half of the year with Mr. Young and Dr. Pedraza.
I feel like every time I turn it on, it whistles at me. I had a question about that too. It seems to me like high schools should have a high school advisory group with the principal. Do they have those at every high school?
Not everyone was, and so now we have ensured that this is happening, and then we encourage and ask every middle school to also have a principal's advisory.
I think that student voice is incredibly important. And if we are not getting them all together as a large group, I think we're missing an opportunity. I think that having those more robust programs at the site is awesome. And having those key people in and bringing different groups in or different kids in throughout the year. And I love the idea of picking a project that they've identified as something. But I want them to come together because I think that the different projects they're doing at each schools might spur some interest in the other ones, and we're missing that opportunity to have some of that best practice and the collaboration. As well as when we look into all of the advisory committee groups, I know it moved toward an online platform, and I think there's a lot of value to being in person. And so even if there's an option to do one, to catch it via Zoom or to be able to listen in is great, but I would love to go back to in person. The Community Superintendent's Advisory Committee that brought in anybody from a school, but also the community, was super valuable. And I heard feedback from community members that were very upset that they were turned away because they're not a parent. And we want them to be at the table too, because they're our stakeholders as well. And so I'd love to see that piece become more robust throughout all of the schools.
I'm just going to add on there that I think it would be great also if our student board member attends those meetings that are centralized with the kids from all the high schools, and then they could report about what they experienced and the ideas that are being brought. So we're getting that information too at our board meetings.
Just to go back to, like you said, the advisory meetings with parents and stakeholders, I would like to also have those be back in person, because I know what a valuable tool it was to hear what all the different school sites were doing and to bounce ideas off each other. And I was also approached by someone who was concerned about the format they were in, that it was mostly disseminating information rather than getting feedback. So yeah, having it in person, I think, helps that a little bit more, enables the two-way communication rather than just putting it out there.
The agenda is important, but also to provide an opportunity for them to bring up items and them to put things on the agenda and in a reasonable way, so that they can have their questions answered too and give feedback.
Absolutely.
I have just a couple of questions. Engage community, we talk a little bit about metrics or little data about the school climate data analysis. What other, and then there's something else about the number of people that engage on social media with us. What other data or what other things can we do to encourage that that communication, and what data can be reported out? Like, I'm sure there's more things that are being done. Just the metric on social media is great, but what else needs to be a little bit more? I would love to see.
Yeah, sure. We can definitely add in more data pertaining to like the number of advisories, the number of participants who come to each, school site councils, coffees with the principals, all the different events. We did add in more stakeholder survey questions this year too, trying to get to the heart of engagement in our families to see how often are you coming to your school and for what reasons. And so we can definitely pull that data and share it with you.
So I had a question regarding the middle school athletics. I see, obviously, we have a lot of participation in all the sports. My question is there any way that we could, since it's growing so big and it's getting to be a robust program, that we can kind of, I guess, wean it away from the high school coaches and have a more dedicated middle school coaches for these programs? Just because I know sometimes it takes away from, like if you take a high school coach out of there, from away from their team to go to the middle school, it kind of takes away from their team and their practice time. So, and it's also like we're borrowing rather than these athletes having their own coaches, you know, making them feel a little more special. So I was just wondering if that had been considered yet, of just kind of maybe hiring, since we already do, they do get a stipend, so that would just go to someone else rather than somebody who's already on staff, just so they have more dedicated, and maybe could be a face on campus that they get to see all the time and relate to, because that would help with connectedness to the school as well, rather than a high school coach coming in to the school.
Question: Can the middle school teachers apply to be that kind of?
Absolutely. The middle school principals are recruiting from their site, and then if they aren't having any luck, then they start reaching out to the high schools. And then specifically for wrestling, high school helps out a lot because of the technical and safety components. That is the one sport where high school is heavily involved, but otherwise it's almost all middle school staff that are the coaches for all the sports.
And since we brought it up, I know currently we're paying for it out of our arts and music instructional block grant. Next year's the last year of that grant, correct?
Correct.
So we need to look at long-term funding because that money will be gone. So, you know, how can we sustain this program? We worked really hard to build it.
Or what do we look at to keep it going and maybe pull away from those that may be the more expensive or the, you know?
Yeah, I'm like, how do we balance it?
I think the importance is, man, that's really hot, Jeremy. Just prioritizing and knowing that that's important, because I think that is a huge thing for the middle schools and for the middle school students, especially transitioning into high school when they already have, especially with the wrestling program. Like, that's a huge thing because it is technical and there's a lot of safety items that you have to have in place. So I think, yeah, just as long as we make sure that we all know that's a priority to make sure that that happens. I don't think it really matters how it happens, as long as Joan finds some money.
Well, a lot of all the startup costs for the sports were purchased through the block grant, which is wonderful. And so really now the budget is going towards the stipends to sustain the program. So there isn't necessarily one sport that's more expensive than the other than like the few that require referees for the competitions. But it's all pretty doable now. As long as we want to have 5 seasons, it's pretty comparable. We'll just need to identify a funding source, which I know we all know which funding source it'll be. Everyone's favorite.
Similar
Which
to
one, ELAP?
The general fund.
The general fund.
However, actually, to say, we are partnering with Expanded Learning now that they will be running at all 6 middle schools next year. We do plan to utilize ELAP funding to sustain the middle school sports program.
I'm not exactly sure of the school schedule. That's maybe that. Is there any way that can be pushed it to the end of the day so that it can become more of that after school? And And then as you're looking at the 5 sports with different quarters and different semesters and things like that, is it appropriate to have 5? Should we be looking at rotating? And if we're already at budget issues, should my preference would be to make sure that we're balancing that we're not taking out of general fund, to make sure
Yes.
that that is growing.
Yes.
That we maintain and take care of it as best we can, and then if we get an influx of money in the next few
Yes.
years, then we can do another kind of wave through. But the fact that it came from Arts and Music Block Grant, I don't like. I think that it should have been Arts and Music, but we're here, so let's make the best of it and make sure that it's appropriate and it's not over impacting the school or our budget.
Yeah, definitely.
Would it be possible, similar to the high school sports, having a booster program, a booster, like,
Yeah.
I mean, just for additional outside sources, or maybe even reach
Yeah.
involved in that?
We
Or some
do-
type of fundraising.
Yes, these are all great suggestions. We do partner with the Reach Foundation, and they are now supporting both the track meet and the cross-country event, so.
Providence St. Joseph also is super heavy into Move More Eat Healthy and physical fitness, and they've
There
done
should be a
some-
lot of outside sources that would
The
support
hospitals
that
would, I
program.
mean, it helps with health, so if we can reduce the number of students that are at that threshold of not being a healthy weight or a healthy fitness,
Yeah.
they might help support that piece too.
All great suggestions.
Anybody have anything more on 1 before?
Or 2.
Okay. Okay, I'm moving
All
to 2.
students.
I just had a question related, and maybe it's offline later, but the K-12 Strong Workforce Grant Program and looking at PD and the use of AI in the classroom, can you maybe share a little more? I'm interested in it and what that could look like, and are we going to be able to expand that to make sure that that's helping all of our teachers and students?
Yes, so we were fortunate to be selected for a K-12 SWP grant. It's an interesting name. It's named K-12, but it needs to be spent on secondary only. It's a constraint of the grant. And we have actually next Monday, I'll be attending an AI workshop with fellow district leaders from around Orange County down at Westminster School District to kind of see how they're approaching it. There are quite a few AI products out there, but they're all still kind of figuring out how to prove that they support student achievement. And so that's why we're going to be mindful of what do we train our teachers in using, making sure that it's sustainable and that we're not just getting them hooked on something that's going to be quite expensive. And so I look forward to that collaborative, both in terms of the policies and the practices, but also, okay, how do you support it in the classroom in a way that is sustainable for us moving forward so that it can support, again, all of our students. There are some ways that teachers can use it for kind of a brainstorming buddy for planning differentiation, for example, like behind the scenes, that we have been offering some kind of know as you go type AI awareness bulletins in the secondary bulletins that Mr. Young sends out, and we also include them in the elementary ones. So as more details come out that are more concrete, I really look forward to using that. We have until the end of the 2027 school year to spend it, so we just want to make sure we spend it in the right areas.
In regards to goal 2, for the early childhood education training, I know it says TK teachers regularly collaborate and will be introduced to the DRDP assessment tool. They don't currently use it right now, correct? Correct. Okay, so just, I know the DRDP can be very meaty and weighty, and just a suggestion is when, not to overwhelm the TK teachers, but you can whittle it down to make it customized to what you and what they see as priorities, because it is a very long and tedious assessment, and it's a lot of observational tools. So it is possible to hopefully kind of skinny that down a little bit to hit those core and essential standards that you want the TKs to be ready for kindergarten with. So that might be something to look at to kind of help ease that assessment into TK for them. Thank you.
Also, I have a question about 2.5 or 2.2, the professional development for the the screeners for K through 2. And it looks like we're going to be piloting, is that correct, for next year? And what does that look like?
So we are currently taking a look at and piloting 2 screeners that have been approved by California State. And so our teachers have gone through one of the screeners, that was Amira, and then they're now piloting multitudes. And so from those, we're going to bring it to the board. The recommendation, that group of teachers is slated to make that recommendation May 1st, and that'll come to the board. And then we need to have a selected screener by our June board meeting so that we can start to train our teachers on the use of it. Yes, this summer.
I'm very excited to see, because we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm excited to see how this rolls out and what the options are and what it's going to look like for our students. I think that's going to be a really great asset, so I'm excited to see that we have moved and we're piloting.
And in collaboration with, in determining the screener, we're also going to provide a training on what to do next. So it's not just a matter of selecting the screener, it's what do you do with the results of the screener and how you provide intervention for students. So that will also be happening this summer.
And I think I just want to add one thing as well. We've been talking at the county level about screeners and the importance of ensuring that they're used early on to identify students not for placement in a program, but actually to help them learn to read. And so what we're hoping we're going to get globally is that we're going to learn how to explicitly, prescriptively, and in a targeted fashion really learn what students are missing in the 5 core areas of reading, figure that out, and then teach accordingly. What a lot of, I think, superintendents, assistant superintendents, and administrators throughout the county are not wanting to have happen is that we start to identify more students naturally for special education. Because as we know, this whole reading difficulty screener process came out of, I think it was the 2018 California Department of Ed dyslexia guidelines, which indicated that about 20% of our students will have a problem with reading. It doesn't mean that they are disabled or have a major deficit. It means that they just don't learn to read in the same way that everybody else does. And so we have to explicitly teach reading in that way. And I think if we learn to do that and we really dedicate this time, which we know research says it's got to be during this certain time during the day, and we progress monitor and we move students accordingly in a very fluid fashion, then we're going to be able to also hit the other area, which is our ELs. And it's something that I think it'll kind of be what is it called? 2 for 1, yes.
Going on as you were saying about explicitly teaching reading and having those data points, has anybody discussed like science of reading training and things like something to look at?
Yes, and so we are really excited to have our teachers that are part of the screener be also a part of our ELA adoption. And so we're going to be starting that next year as well, so that we can take a look at, we're already getting some adoption materials now. And so one of the components will be to have the group of teachers that select the screener also participate in the adoption so that we can take a look and see that there's an alignment with the best practices for reading and addressing reading challenges. We're also working with our teachers on ensuring that they are doing small group instruction so that when those reading difficulties come up, they can learn how to address those. And so that's part of the work that we're doing as well, is taking a look at what we have out there and the components of literacy, phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, reading comprehension. Those have been the building blocks of literacy that we have focused on for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I was going to share, Liz, please share, you've been providing trainings for the past 4 years on, and not calling it the science of reading, but the science of reading. So our teachers have had that training opportunity for 4 years now.
I have a question regarding mathematics. So on page 51, it talks about math fellows provided coaching and model classrooms. Can you tell me about what the math fellows did, and are we going to be able to continue those in next year?
Also, Liz?
Yes, so we have about 15 math fellows, and these are teachers teaching teachers, which we know is the best professional development that we can provide. And so they surfaced out of our work with CGI, the Cognitively Guided Instruction. So within that, we provided differentiated professional development, and we asked our teachers to self-assess where they felt their understanding was with CGI. And from that, our advanced teachers who felt that they had a good grasp on how to ensure that students were explaining their thinking became our math fellows. And so these math fellows then were trained by UCLA and UCI, and they continue to be trained in that. And so what we're doing is we're providing release days for them to go out to school sites, and it's by invitation right now, but we have had more of an interest in having them come and do demo lessons. So what they do is they become instructional coaches to their peers. They go in and demo a lesson, then they turn around and lesson plan with their teacher, the collaborating teacher. Then they observe the teacher and give feedback. So these are teachers giving teachers feedback, non-evaluative, and administrators are not involved in that process for evaluation purposes, because what we want is for our teachers to have that safe space to try these practices, and building the capacity of internal teachers to support other teachers is the work that we've been doing. As a matter of fact, some of them have been called during staff meetings to provide professional development, and so that they can turn around in the learning that they have had through UCLA and UC Irvine, they can then teach their teachers at their school site. And so they've also participated and collaborated on doing lessons that they are making available, and they're already available to all of our teachers through the lesson planning that they have done that are aligned with the new math framework. So that's an additional layer of support that they have been providing, is essentially grab and go lessons that teachers can use immediately, that are focused on cognitively guided instruction and having students explain their thinking. So we are really excited. We actually have a 3-year program, and so they are in the 2nd year of their program, which is now turn around and train someone else. So you got the training, I'll turn around and train someone else, and then the 3rd year being that they help to coach. And so they're very excited about the opportunity to visit classrooms. You know, if teachers invite them into classrooms, they're ready to go.
Is there any recording being done of this so that they could be shared? And
Yes, they have. When we first engaged their support, we let them know that the goal would be to somehow be able to have teachers get access to it. And so there are recordings. They're provided in our website. And so in Ed Services, so there are already recordings, and they record themselves or each other, so that if teachers aren't able to have them come to their classrooms, they can certainly view those. And so what we've been doing is having sessions at the different schools with the math fellows, going in and them watching each other teach, first of all, so they can turn around and teach others. So yes, there are recordings.
I'm also happy to see that we have our financial literacy class that's being developed for the next year. State requirement, but something that I know Mrs. Anderson and I are very passionate about. So looking forward to what that is going to look like and getting that to the students.
That's a good note. I wanted to talk about the classified training. On page 53, it's 2.6. Obviously, there is not enough money allotted to train all, but so what are our priorities? Where are we focusing for the classified staff?
Microphone. Whoops. Sorry.
The special education world is a focus of ours. And I know that we've increased the different opportunities they have for training, but this year we're really focused on it and also have addressed it in our contract negotiations.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we've continued with PROACT training and targeted instructional aids in the summer as well. That's one of our biggest, most well-received training that aides receive. The other thing that we're doing is we're working with a company to do onboarding with human resources so that once we get the contract all figured out, but as we hire new employees, because we're actually, knock on wood if there's wood around, we're actually doing a good job of hiring a lot more employees lately for those aid positions. But one of the things we want is that everybody gets at least a base of knowledge through online modules that companies have developed, and they're very good quality. They're similar to the Keenan trainings. They're a subsidiary kind of the Keenan company, and so the modules are very good quality. They're live people, they're not animated or anything like that. So there's a lot of good examples in there, just basic information about special education, classroom management, behavior management, how to be an instructional aid and support the teacher. So we're really excited to have that onboarding. And with 3 or 4 hours, people can at least get a basis of knowledge before, because a lot of our people, they're eager, but they don't have any experience. So this will give them some basis of knowledge before they step into the classroom, and then they'll get the ongoing training from their teachers. The other thing we do is we do have the day before school starts that it's a dedicated full day of in-service where we do usually target a lot of behavior management training on that day, but as well as just what your role is in the classroom and how you can best support your teacher, because and the final thing they get on that day is time with their teacher, which is the best part of all. They get to know what the expectations are, dedicated time with the teacher without students there, so they can learn what their role is in the classroom, because every classroom is a little bit different. So.
And I would just say too, a lot of the classified staff is made up of our special education assistants. We have almost 500 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we know, and I know we all have heard this a number of times, is that we have a high turnover rate in that with that group. And so part of what Ms. Radira was just explaining is the onboarding is excellent, but also as we have the turnover, we'll have something online when we get people that start in November or in February or maybe May, that they can watch that as well. So we've struggled with how do we train on an ongoing basis when we have this turnover rate.
Yeah.
Someone dancing behind me. Anyway, so we hope that will address that need as well.
Are there any other groups you guys are prioritizing, or is it just special education, which I'm not saying is I am saying it's important, so I'm not degrading it.
I would say bus drivers as well, right? I mean, with the behavior as well, we involve them. I think we need to look a cross-section of our classified staff to train.
Transportation in general, all the M&O has training. Nutrition Services has training, and it's usually before school, but it's ongoing. I would say those are really more regular in practice. Some of them have other funding sources to do that.
And a lot of it's required training, so whatever it is that we need to be doing, we're making sure that we're in compliance with whatever is needed from, like transportation has to make sure that they can work with our students, keep them safe, maintain the bus, and so on and so forth. So lots of training for our classified staff.
And we do also partner with transportation because a lot of our bus drivers drive our students with special needs. So we do have a training every year, at least once a year, sometimes twice, for bus drivers. And if they have a new influx, and also bus attendants attend that training as well. So that it's sort of a little bit of PROACT, but how to do things, what can you do on the bus that can it's kind of like classroom management for the bus is what it is. So we do that every year as well with them.
Yeah, I just noticed that this was a community input, so I was like, was there some, training that the community was like, we need more of, so that's why I asked.
We're also providing training for our computer instructional specialists. as with technology, and we have created a progression plan that how we build and expose our students at kindergarten all the way through with computer access and skills, as well as training our librarians. And so now we have a person at the district level, computer, our senior instructional materials clerk, who is helping to provide training, and we're really excited because we've done some parent workshops around interactive read-alouds, and so that our librarians can also engage in interactive read-alouds when students come in, and so that is a conversation we are currently having and pursuing that professional development for our other classified staff as well.
Finally, classified staff, at our schools are invited to the school safety trainings that the principals hold to. And so we did hear through our stakeholder sessions that we need to make a more concerted effort to ensure that we offer pay for them if they're coming outside of their time. And so we'll be sure to do that moving forward too.
On a little bit of a thread I'll pull, the family literacy night is mentioned, and it wasn't at every school, and as I looked at the different schools, the ones that they were at were not our Title I schools or those that had the highest need. So I'm just curious as to what that looks like and how is that going to be utilized at the other schools too, the ones that are Title I, the highest need in that family literacy piece.
So we highly encouraged our principals to take advantage of that and reach out to their teachers to be a part of that. They had the choice to do a family literacy night or a family math night. So if they didn't do a literacy night, they had the choice to do a math night. And so what we provided was not only the funding to pay our teachers extra hours to do that and to get training. And we, our teacher on special assignment, our English language arts teacher on special assignment provided the training on interactive read aloud for English language arts, and then in math they had the opportunity to teach any math game that they wanted, and then we gave each site an allocation to purchase books so that our families could have a takeaway. They could come and learn a skill with their children and then practice it with a math book or an English language arts book. So they had the choice to either do one of those two.
All of the schools, all the elementary schools participated?
They didn't all participate. I can get you the list of the ones. There was an increase. We offered this last year as well, and because it was so well received, we offered it again this year and provided the funding and allocation for it, and then highly encouraged our principals. I know we had a greater participation this year than we did last year.
I would like to have us encourage even more and make that a standing thing that we do. If we can teach the parents how to help teach their children, we're better off. So the investment is worth it, and requiring all the schools to pick one or the other, and then the next year they can flip. Or maybe they want to do both. But I think it's really important, and that's building the community as well.
I agree.
Well, I was going to say, along with the decreases in those scores, the at-home part is probably the biggest piece. So I think putting more effort towards that would be beneficial in the long run and also immediately. So making sure that that's a requirement on both sides, I think is really important, because that was one of the things I'm looking at this. I'm thinking there's an at-home piece that's not really necessarily being discussed. The other thing is on the data dive, I would love to see a cross section of the sites that did the reading versus the math, and then how their scores were in that reading comprehension, because it would be I'd be curious if there's a correlation of not having the reading for the home support. That would then be an indicator that says, okay, that's more important. If we got to get reading scores up, then we have to make everybody do reading. So, just curious.
Might be a long-term study too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If I could have Jose jump on, because while our Title I sites may not have all held family literacy or family math nights, they all participate in the Parent Institute Quality for Education, which provided parenting workshops on literacy. So
and it was early literacy, and I will tell you, they had great participation. Even on rainy days, it was one day it was pouring, and we had about 50 participants at Melrose. We even had dads coming to this literacy nights. All Title I participated. I believe Ruby and Glenview, they had a option to do an online, and both participated. And so it was early literacy, so it was our TK to second grade because they focused on early literacy. And it was a 8-week course, and the graduations were very impactful. I went to 3 of them, and there were tears, but the level of home involvement did emphasize that throughout the 8-week course, and they were very appreciative, but also the impact that it made on the home, and the idea of early literacy was a focus through those 8 weeks, and it was well received, and they want more.
That's awesome. I'm curious, and I know we've got lots of preschools now, and what can we do? We don't get ADA for that, but what can we do to build in that literacy piece and invest in those kids? When you look at the amount, the 80% of your brain is developed before age 3. So if we are missing the window, then we're already at a deficit. But if we can infuse more of that and teach parents how to support their kids in that early stage, and why it's so important, can you talk a little bit more about how we do that?
Yes, and I think that it was evident in those that were participating. We had childcare at each of the sites, and childcare was very busy because they had little ones that were not yet preschool ready, but they emphasized, PK really emphasized the early exposure to print materials and just different language resources. And so we are targeting, we are not saying if you're not at this grade level, you can't participate. It's open to that community. So for example, the Melrose community, they were all invited regardless of the grade level. And multiple families had some at the TK, but also had 5th graders. And so that was nice to see. And that was their input as well, that they were very appreciative that they had that opportunity to explore these different areas of reading. And so it helped them open their eyes to the importance of reading early on, especially those, like I said, that had the little ones in the wheel, the strollers, the strollers during daycare. So we'll continue to advertise it and really emphasize the importance of early literacy as well.
I wanted to add that we've been working in collaboration with Expanded Learning, and so we have created this amazing book that all of our families are going to get. In the beginning part of the book, we work with Lakeshore, and they have been very accommodating with what we want to provide to every single family as a part of like expanded learning after school. The beginning part of the book is going to be all the highlights and great things about PYL USD to be like an advertisement about all the great things we have. And then the second part of it is work with your child at the designated grade level on these core math skills and these core literacy skills. So that's the joint work that we're doing also with our expanded learning and working on during the day and after school, and how we can continue to integrate and involve our families on all things that are great about PYL as well as literacy and math.
It's like the t-shirt with the stuff on the back.
I think just to add on to that, with what Expanded Learning is doing with the preschool programs, is following the California State frameworks and foundations, and their teachers have been getting a lot of training in that. I know this because our special ed teachers are involved highly in that as well, and that builds the foundation of, you know, they're working on where's the front of the book, where's the title of the book, all those pre-literacy skills, so that, and just how to draw lines and all the pre-writing skills. So all of that's built into those preschool programs, which, you know, is just to funnel them into TK and be even more ready. So I think those preschool trainings and what the teachers are getting is really rich as well, following the California foundations.
Those are the preschool learning foundations,
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
yeah, the learning foundations.
We ready to go to our English learners? I think so. Okay. Goals 3 and 4 pertain to our English learners and long-term English learners. We welcome any and all feedback at this time.
I would just reiterate that the parent involvement is huge.
And so making sure that's, I see it listed number, well, the top of the list. That's just something that we need to make sure that is a high focus in all of this.
Absolutely. And we hope to hear back about our community schools grant application by the end of next month. And so the majority of our Title I elementary schools and Valadez applied for it. And so fingers crossed, but we are investing a lot of our current funds for our community engagement initiative into our community engagement. So Jose, do you want to share a few things that we've done thus far at our Title Is?
Yes, I think that that's going to be an important highlight, and again, fingers crossed. And I think we're optimistic that our application for this community schools grant is pretty strong. This is the final cycle for the grant. After this, it's over, and so we're pretty optimistic. We had several LEAs, San Bernardino and Oxnard, really looking at our application, and they were like, "This is good. This is strong." And so I think we're optimistic. With the Community Engagement Initiative, it really looked at helping us as a district and as a leadership change our mindset. And I think we said, and we've heard a lot about it today, and we've learned, both Dr. Pedraza and I and Dr. Young and Mrs. Gray, we've been attending these sessions. And one thing I've learned was that mindset of we typically do 4. It's always 4. So for this group, for this student group, for this, classroom. And we should continue with 4, but also with, because that's the voice. And you'll see that a lot of the different actions as it relates to our English learners, our LTELs, it's with, not just for, but with. And so that's going to be an important change that we're making as we look to make changes in their trajectory as far as their achievement. And so we've had a lot of participation at our Title I sites. We had our Title I advisory continue to flourish, and the feedback they've given us, even as it relates to CTE, we've got some great feedback. Then they said, "Well, why do you wait till middle school? It should be early." And we're like, "You're right." And so we've made it's been a lot of listening. We've done a lot of listening to our parents, and it's been a great experience of learning along with them, but not just for them. And then recently, we actually this week, Monday, we went over. Mrs. Gibbons and I went over to Valadez, and we did a listening session with 45 middle school students. We shared with them what an LTEL is, and asked them many questions, and then we gave them a survey about just how are they connected, what can we do, their voice, and the data is very, very interesting. And so we're looking to look through that, but also share it with you all.
I just wanted to add on, I noticed a lot of that in these goals, where the students are making their goals for their English learning, and the parents are being brought in. So there's a lot that I really enjoyed reading here, and how it mirrored the master plan.
Thank you.
And I know, I'm like, yes. I love it when things all come together, and when you see the same words used in all the programs, when I read in here like some AVID words, and I'm like, yeah, we're just we're doing these great programs, and we have these great structures, but making sure that all of our goals are in line. And I saw that a lot.
The master plan was really the beginning of this work. We didn't have a master plan, and so the work that we were doing perhaps was in isolation and in different buckets or silos, but now it's all cohesive and it's aligned, and there's coherence to what we're doing across all the departments. It's not just one department, it's all departments. Everyone at this table has a interest in our English learners, and you can see it across that master plan. I'm glad you read it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was actually at the DLAC meeting where it was presented to the parents, and hearing all of their feedback, and I just think it's very powerful, and I think that as we do this, I think we're going to see great improvement in our test scores and moving these kids, because they have to have ownership. The parents have to have ownership, the kids have to have ownership, and everyone's moving. So thank you for all your hard work on that, because I know that was a lot of work, and it seems like the work is continuing to this day, getting more student feedback. So
it is, and I think the word that we used repeatedly this year was awareness. Just awareness of what the students need, their voice, even the types of English learners. Trustee Blades mentioned Washington. You know, Washington has a different demographic, and English learners are different apologies even within a English learner group. And so learning that and sharing that information not only with our parents, but our teachers, our administrators, and us learning, oh, they're different. And so each different group has different needs, and how do you address those needs? And so there's a diverse group within that English learner population. And so it's been a year of learning, but also awareness. You mentioned the goal setting. We hadn't done that before. We did it with iReady, and it was very powerful and very, we saw success. And this year we used that same methodology for our English learners to make them aware of their LPAC level and what they need to do to reclassify. So we really focused on awareness this year, and we are confident that's going to bring their trajectory to a different level.
I mean, even in our own district, there is a huge sway of different English learners throughout our district. And I think last time I counted, it was like 87 different languages spoken in our district alone. And the different needs. And one of my favorite questions when I go visit schools is, how many languages are in your English language classes that you're doing? And the average number is about 14 to 15 different languages that they're addressing at that school site. So I just think there's a lot more that we can do, and I think this is a great way to start.
I also just really want to commend Jose and Blanca and really all of our teams for our concerted effort with our English learners. Even though the data isn't showing great strides, I want to just really point out this is the one student group that is so unstable. No other student group has a constant revolving door of students who are coming in as English learners, homelessness, and then reclassifying, dropping off, and then another group coming in. And so it's a constant moving target with this group of students. And the needs are just so diverse across our schools and throughout our district. And so I know that the EL Master Plan is the start of the great work, and we're going to continue to make strides. But I want to commend the progress that has been made throughout our district. Even though it's not yet showing in the LP, it's showing in our reclass numbers, it's showing in other areas as well.
Yeah, English language development is something that, like you said, it's you're in for the long haul. You're gonna hopefully, like you said, you get them reclassified. But I know definitely the parent piece and the goal setting are huge. The parent piece, with the power and the confidence it gives parents to even know that they can use those literacy skills in their home language, and not to sway away from doing that because they don't speak English, necessarily perfectly. But a lot of those skills they can, and once you tell them and like, no, read a book in, Spanish, read a book in whatever your home language is, and practice those same skills, it's amazing, like they light up. And it's so nice to see that they can do that. And it also reinforces their first language, which makes it them more proficient in that language, which makes their English transition a lot easier the more proficient they are, because I know a lot of the challenge is that a lot of the students are not proficient in their home language or the English language, so you're kind of double duty a lot of the strategies. So yeah, it's amazing when you pull the parents in how much gets done, and then the goal setting with the parents and the students along with the teacher, that they know they're one team. And it's really helpful. So yeah, thank you again for that as well. And like you said, it's nothing that you're going to see right away, but you will start chipping away at it, and you'll see the difference in a year or two.
Okay, I have a question on 3.12, the bilingual school student community advisors. Have those, I know we cut it from 4 to 2 at our budget meeting. I'm looking at Joan. And is that going to continue? We're not going to be able to have,
Yes, so all the site positions are in place. The 2 that were closed were actually 2 vacant ones, and I don't know, Renee, if you want to share that were being proposed for the Family Resource Centers.
Yeah, so these were ones that were never filled. We had a total of, I think there were 4 altogether, and then these 2 were in our Student Support Services Department and were not filled. And one of the issues, if you will, was that the job description for this did not match, and so we had to go forward with that. So we're almost done with that, and then we're looking to, of course, not do the 2, but we're hoping 1, because we do need bilingual community liaison, but it needs to match what the need is out there.
So the schools will not be impacted? They'll all have their, okay, that's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
And through the community schools grant, if we're awarded it, they will actually have an additional one.
Yeah, that's built into the budget for the application so each school. That's one of the core pillars of community schools is that community liaison, which is the bridge. Right now, if the Title I school doesn't, it's usually the principal who's the community liaison. So that's going to be a great addition to add that piece so that he or she can direct and really be that bridge for the school and the community. So we're, again, very optimistic for that.
When does that announcement come out? When do I put it in my calendar?
I believe it's the May 31st State Board of Education meeting, but I believe they published their agendas prior, and they'll have the list of the schools prior. So we'll officially be notified May 31st. So
Okay, perfect.
I'm sure we're all going to be on there before.
Do we have any idea how many schools applied and how many are being awarded?
So I guess the qualification was 80% unduplicated. So you had to be at 80%. So there are many schools that just didn't qualify. So that narrowed the pool. And then they were focusing on planning grants first and then the rest. So again, this is the end of the cycle. So many of the districts that had already had been funded, already been kind of funded. And so they can reapply, but they also wanted to give others that haven't applied. So they encouraged everybody. That was one of the questions, what's the likelihood? And they're like, well, just apply, which
So
kind of gave
there's no idea of like potentially we got an 80% shot, 90% shot, 10% shot.
I think different people who I've talked to said if you're at that 80% and your application was strong, then you're very optimistic. I think that's our feeling. We're optimistic. We just don't have.
I think you guys have a good
Yeah.
chance.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
You wrote it, so.
We
have a
wrote
good chance. But yes, but I'm not going to take credit for the writing.
No.
I just wanted to add an idea. So Cal State Fullerton has a whole human services department. I was recently over in Fullerton at one of their elementary schools. The school that has the ADU on it where they have a family that's living there. But the reason I say that is because the community liaison there had previously been a case manager at a shelter nearby. And there's an intern program throughout Human Services, the program at Cal State Fullerton, where everybody's got to go through and do that sort of training. So matching an intern or two with a community liaison or those schools that are the highest need will benefit in 2 ways. One, that college student is going to be able to bring all of that information and knowledge and support for free. And then we're building in that capacity of that school at the same time. So just an idea, it's available, and there's a lot of good students there.
One of the process for the application was that each application, you had to do what's called an asset map. And when you really look at the assets that your district has or your community, it's really extensive. I had to do kind of like make it smaller because we have so much, it's very rich. Even within our Title I school sites, the surrounding communities and the assets that surround that school, it's pretty impressive. And so, yes, Cal State Fullerton, we just have a new partnership with the Anaheim Community Foundation. And so, again, just being aware of what we have in our own backyard is pretty extensive, but also eye-opening to the communities that want to just participate and give. And so, yes, we will definitely look at that as an option, as an idea, but also as a potential partner as well.
I love the concept, community schools concept, wraparound services. But it's one-time money. The idea is for districts to really change their approach. to include the community and build into place all of the elements that are going to help our families. Everything from getting their kids to school to helping them with their homework. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful concept. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that. I'm glad you wrote it.
I have a question about goal 3.13. It's, oh no, not 3.13, 3.7, ELD, instruction and support. We're gonna have academic support teachers at each of our Title I schools, but then the remaining schools, because we've just talked about how we have ELD throughout our district, how are they going to be supported and split up?
So each of the Title I elementaries will have a full-time ELD academic support teacher, and they will stay at that school site full-time, and that is because they'll be split funded, which means part of their Title I allocation will be used to pay for that salary of that academic support teacher at the Title I. At the non-Title I, we have 7, which will be split up between the 14 other non-Title I school sites. And there'll be one within proximity, and so that the travel time. So for example, Lakeview and Maple Plain are in close proximity. They'll share that one person throughout the week.
We'll be able to actually increase the amount of ELD services, though, provided this coming year, because we are removing the class size reduction that our ELD ASTs were providing to our kindergartens and our TKs, and replacing that with a classified position. And so now they'll be able to do all ELD during the times that they're there.
Are they gonna be split like 50-50 during the day, or like 3 days on, 2 days at the other, and then switch weeks?
No, they go to each site 5 days a week, but it's just the time that they spend, half of the day at one site and half of the day at the other. But what Dr. Young just mentioned is that will increase their time, because one site may spend most of their time with class size reduction and reduced ELD time. Now, that'll be flipped. They'll spend more time supporting ELD versus class size reduction.
No time doing.
Or no time, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I
No
appreciate
time,
that too,
yes.
because I heard that as kind of
Yes.
an issue this last year, so I'm
Yeah.
glad that this is being solved and that they're
Yeah.
gonna get the supports they need.
Yes.
Grateful to both of our associations for working together on that. Also, I would say when we paired the schools, it was very equitable, not just by proximity, but also we looked
By
at the number of
numbers.
English learners at each school to ensure that we weren't pairing two higher English learner schools, even if they were non-Title I. So there was a lot of care that Jose put into the pairings.
Yeah, thought process, and also collaboration with the principals as well, their needs and the needs of their English learners, were they newcomers, were there different levels, and so there was a lot of work, a lot of thought behind where we placed, but also the schedule that took place, and both the principals and then the ELD AST was part of that as well. So there's a lot of voices within that schedule building. So.
Just one side note coming from Dr. Lopez texting saying they did put on literacy evenings and back to school nights at the state preschools and fee-based preschools this year with a literacy emphasis. So he just wanted everyone to know that. Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez.
Okay.
I was going to mention it at the last one, but my notes were in LTEL, so I waited. As we're talking about bringing in more student voice, I thought that it would be great to add another advisory group, and it's that student LTEL advisory group, and bringing them together. Not only are we expanding and talking about goals and all of that, but bringing them together as that, so that it can also, they can help inform what we're doing in the future.
Absolutely. We plan to do that. That is one of our priorities. We tested it with Valadez, and we said we're coming back, and we're going to go to all the schools. And it's going to be our middle school and high schools that we'll visit and create that connection with them periodically, not just the one time a year, but create a relationship with them to, again, to impact, but also the voice. I think that was a new thing for them. They were all like, why are we here? Why are we here? And we're like, you're not in trouble, you know, because many of them know me from Rio Vista, and they're like, why are you back? Are you back here? But I think the awareness of voice and their voice and what they have to offer was new to them. They're like, oh, okay. And then we told them, we're going to read your survey and we're going to come back and share it with you. And so I think that's an important piece, the follow up with them. So we plan to do that. In the multiple meetings that Mrs. Gibbons and I attend at the county and different districts, one of the things that they see that districts that have increased scores for English learners and LTELs is student voice. The student voice is something that they've captured and they've been researching, and that's where the bright spot is, that student voice, the goal setting. Because if you have a voice, if you have a goal, then you're part of the process. But if you don't have a voice and you don't have a goal, then you're just kind of just sitting there, and it's just doesn't really matter. So we shared that with them, and that kind of changed the scenery. So yes, we will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and let me add, if I may, Madam President. This is the first year that LTELs are a student group on the dashboard. So there's some expectation that there will certainly be a interest on the state level to really look deeply into the work being done. So I was just delighted to see the great work that's being done here in PYL to that end. So again, great work and kudos to the team. Keep it up.
Okay, on goal 4.3, it talked about how there's been a challenge with maintaining continuity instruction because of the professional development. So, and you know, teachers leaving the classroom to be trained. Is there any way to do these trainings like in our summer institute or before school so that teachers aren't having to leave class?
Well, I think the training that we offered this year, it's in a couple of different scenarios. We did offer some training early in the year, and it was an after-school training. But the bulk of our training and the bulk of our investment has been GLAD. And GLAD stands for Guided Language Acquisition Design. And that is very difficult to do over the summer because it involves 6 days, a total of 6 days. 2 days of theory and research, which really goes deep into language acquisition and what language acquisition really is and truly is. And it breaks down the brain, the research, and all that. They spend 2 days. And then the 4 days, which I think are just very impactful, are the demonstration days. Dr. Leon talked about the coaching and watching. We just recently had a group of first grade teachers watch a trainer for 3 days. And I will tell you that I was a little nervous because I didn't know what to expect. And to see it in action where the trainer is with 31 first graders on a rainy day, 100 day of school, day after a holiday, engaged for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and really coach and show and model for 3 days. The teachers that went through the training were very, the positive feedback that they gave us. So it is difficult, but that's the model, and that's the model that they've used, and it has shown to be effective. And so we recognize that 3 days, 3 consecutive days to be out of the classroom is difficult, but it's the model that's been proven to be effective.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
I was very excited to see the GLAD training being implemented. I've used GLAD for several years now, and I agree, being a teacher and going to the training and be sitting there going, yeah, right, let me see you do that with my class. So when you do see it work and you do buy into it, it's amazing. And you're right, the in-person, the coaching, and actually having an actual class going through it is, yeah, very helpful, very powerful. And I think, yeah, it just buys in even more. And I agree, the GLAD training it would be very, very helpful and very,
We recently did a three-part series with our secondary, which is our middle school and high school teachers, and the feedback they gave us was very positive, and it was different content. You had math, science teachers, and their comment was, "This is great. I can use this, right away." Sometimes we go to trainings where it's a lot of theory, a lot of, and you put your binder in your bookcase. No, they actually had something to take away and actually implement right away, and so we have gotten positive feedback from both grade spans as well.
Any other questions on LTELs? Our input?
for the high school level, what, like targeted interventions or what's new things are they going to be doing to, because I know that they're later in the game, obviously, being high school LTELs. So.
As far as training for teachers, or next year we have a cohort of high school 6 through 12 participating in the full implementation. So the 2-day research, and then the 4-day demo days, and we're targeting the ELD teachers at the middle school and high school, and so that's kind of where we're starting, and then we'll offer throughout the year some after-school kind of targeted, strategies that those that want more, but that's our target next year, the 15 to 20 to begin that work at the middle school and high school.
I did have a discussion with the high school principal that he was suggesting that he would like to see ELD targeted in all the subjects, not just in their compartmentalized class. So is there any way or any discussion you've had about how you can make that kind of happen or make the teachers more aware of these that are the targeted students you need to look at?
And I think GLAD really focuses on the integrated part because you have the designated, which is that specific protected time, but then integrated, everybody does integrated. And I think that's the power of GLAD, where if I'm a science teacher, I can use GLAD to address my English learners, my LTELs. But to address the specific needs, I think we're doing something different next year with ARIES, where the roster will hopefully then say, blank student is an English learner, has a 504, so that right away the teacher can see who they are. And even within the English learner, we can adjust the typology. So if it's a newcomer, if it's a recently reclassified, again, because the typology, they're different and they have different needs. Even our recently reclassified, we have to pay attention to them as well. So.
Perfect. That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
I appreciate that, because the more we can front load the teachers on what is happening and what to be prepared for, the better off that they're going to be. And so being able to see that as a snapshot so that they can already look at how are they going to work with that particular student, how do they work with this, how do they scaffold this lesson or that. I really appreciate that we're really getting to the point where the more we know.
And that was really called out in the EL roadmap that we spent a lot of time this year with everyone. I actually even have one for you all, the board. There's a toolkit for the board to be really versed in this toolkit, this policy. But that was one of the things that they suggested, knowing your students, knowing their name, their face, and their story, and really knowing who they are. Again, an English learner could be a recently arrived. It could be an LTEL who's been here since kindergarten. There's just a diverse, but knowing who they are and meeting their needs is very, very important. So yes, that will happen next year as well.
It's perfect. I was going to say that too, because you can have every program in the world, you can have every resource in the world, but it ultimately comes down to what does that one student need, and what do they're meeting their individual needs. So that's, like you said, the more the teacher gets to know them, the better, and it will
Absolutely.
really help.
I think that if it was a magical program or a resource, then we wouldn't have an issue, but yeah.
Okay, we've been going for over 2 hours. Do you guys want to take a break? Okay, let's just take a quick 10-minute break.
Can I kick it off?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, I'd like to kick it off for our low socioeconomic students. The actual numbers are not included anywhere, but the number of homeless and unhoused students that we have is incredibly high. We are actually ranked 4th in the entire county, which is a little better. We used to be 3rd last year. But I would love to see the numbers called out and look at specifically what's happening with those children, because they are the lowest performing when you compare them to any of the other subpopulations. They are constantly moving. They need additional support, and I don't think we call it out enough, especially with the number that we have when you're looking at, just countywide in comparison, and the number of it's only increasing. So I'll just stop there.
I think it's surprising too when you talk about this that the circumstances are all different as well. It's when people think of, of socioeconomic and homeless as they don't have anywhere to live, when sometimes they do. It's just with family members. But the different circumstances that go into this as well is, I know a lot of people are not aware of or kind of don't think of as being under that umbrella. So it's good that we are addressing the whole.
Also, since we're just talking generally, before you get into some of the goals, this is 44% of our district. This is the largest number, and so I think it deserves, critical attention and how to address this and help these students, because it's throughout our district, and also it's a very large portion of our student body. So,
and like we were talking about with the English language learners, how you can kind of get the new groups coming in. It's the same thing here, because if they move out of the district and you get new kids in, it's always kind of chasing a moving target, so you have, like you said, they're very not stable, so obviously you're going to get new groups and new students. So you start something with them, and then they go somewhere, and then you're coming back to starting again.
I think too that when we deal with our lower socioeconomic families, we've been talking as a team about just this multifaceted approach, right? Like there's so many ways to get in and figure out what we can do differently, and then what our students and our families respond to. This year we've been really intentional thinking about even working with Ed Services on the CEI plan. We were just talking about all the community engagement initiatives, and then, Dr. Pedraza can talk about the family summit, just wellness opportunities for those families, because they come with a multitude of needs, and it's kind of hard to describe, right? I mean, we know, but it's so layered. So what is it at one site versus another? We may say, hey, they have the exact same percentages, but just because you've seen one student from a low socioeconomic standing, all that means is you've seen one student from a low socioeconomic standing. It's varied. And so I think we have to be really good at putting our hand on the pulse of these families, knowing what they need, and helping our site leaders to be able to read that and then determine how we really tailor what we will do with each site. And maybe Dr. Pedraza, you can talk a little bit about how we've been doing that. We used to have something called the Parent University, which was great. I mean, a wonderful thing. And the concept is rooted in really helpful things for the family, but we thought, let's take it a little bit further and maybe talk about what this would look like tailored to each community need. So we're kind of doing that moving forward, and maybe you can speak to a couple of the things before they ask questions about
Yeah,
it.
and just to kind of echo what's been kind of a common theme here tonight with working with and not for, is to talk to our parents, to talk to our families and find out what are those needs. And that's something I know that our team has talked a lot about, is maybe having a focus group with some of our families and finding out more about what they need. Something that we've done this year as well is used a Google form for a referral process, so that we can take an inventory of what are those needs, or what are the things that they're asking for, whether it's mental health resources, whether it's basic needs, all of these things. So collecting that information this year and that data is going to also help us be able to determine and where they're coming from, what areas they're coming from, so we can find out, what areas do we see, certain needs, more prevalent than in other areas. So we're taking, like Ms. Gray said, a much more intentional approach to trying to meet the needs and understanding what they are. And like as you had mentioned, whether they're moving out or not, also identifying where their status changes even during the year. So a lot of times we find that out as well. And we work to also train our office staff as well, the office staff who's always in contact with our families as well, to just be able to recognize those things, how to have dialogue and do so in a way that's sensitive, but also wants to work to address those needs of the families.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the hierarchy of needs. So you cannot address the learning until those basic needs are met. So a lot of these families, you're just working, like you said, at that basic level of food on the table, clothes on their back, and like you said, mental health sometimes, or even their medical health. So yeah, we can't get their test scores up until we actually address the root and the basics. So.
Aha, there we go. Good job. I probably made it loose. What kind of training do any of our teachers or our office staff, principals get related to homelessness? How to support family, what the system looks like?
Oh, yeah, you want to speak? Go ahead.
The training is provided through the Orange County Department of Education, and so every staff is provided the video that they display at one of the staff meetings.
Does every single staff member watch that video, or is that a requirement?
It's not a requirement, but I do know that we showed it at the secretary's meeting. We've displayed it with the clerks and then also the teachers and at the staff meetings on campus. So we try to hit as many people as possible and make it available. And then our team from the FRC also goes out and will go through and talk with the office team and discuss just again what it means to be McKinney-Vento, the best way to approach a family, just put the paper next to us or filling out paperwork without drawing it out, calling it out, and just being sensitive to that piece of it. But again, just helping, ensure that we're recognizing as many families as possible.
So I would love to volunteer to help build out more training and a process. What I do in my full-time work is, I'm now at a new job, but my nonprofit was absorbed by the United Way, and we work directly with families experiencing homelessness and the services and connections that are there. So I do a lot of trainings for school districts on what homelessness looks like, how to support those kids, what the impacts it is on an education, on their education and beyond. So I'm happy to help build that out, to come and present, to bring somebody else to present, to do a homelessness 101 course that's really geared specifically to educators, that we could make more robust, because I think that there's so much more that we definitely need to be doing, and drawing the line and identifying and making sure we all know what those numbers are so that we can start to improve them is going to be really key.
Yeah, and something else that we've also, to build upon what Ms. Gordillo said as well too, was with the administrators also encouraging them to show that video, but also to recognize how to identify when as I had mentioned earlier, but also understanding that beyond just the McKinney-Vento laws and some of the rights and responsibilities that we have, but understanding that there's a level of trauma that's also could be embedded. So building upon the training, not just to be specific to McKinney-Vento laws and regulations, but also understanding, like you had mentioned, what might those families be experiencing. And if it's something not just being trauma informed, but being trauma responsive, I think there's a difference that we have to want to take a look at as we move forward. So we appreciate the offer and the support. We look forward to that as well.
Since we're talking about this, I just want to share a positive experience that someone shared with me about. They were enrolling their children into one of our elementary schools, and during the conversation, the parent asked about preschool, and they're like, "Oh, we just have state preschools. They're done on, income and things like that," and it was kind of a basic conversation. But then later on, the secretary contacted this person and said, I've been reviewing your paperwork and you actually qualify, and you are McKinney-Vento. And this secretary, she was the one who brought it to their attention, helped them get the paperwork to get their kid enrolled in preschool for next year. So I think our secretaries are doing a good job, but I'm always, more training is always good. And I love that they were being proactive and helping this family in my community. So just wanted to share that. Okay, I have a oh, you want to go?
Just want to add for the community school grant, I think in those schools would help tremendously with this as well, because it does address all the basic needs so I think that area would benefit quite a bit.
Within the community schools grant, we allocated quite a bit of professional development for teachers. There is an abundance of research that shows that our teachers, just in general, don't have a lot of training as it relates to family engagement. And we've kind of changed it to family engagement because family dynamics have changed. Not everyone has a parent, or your parent could be a single parent, or your parent could be your grandparent or something. And so we really encompass and been intentional with family engagement. And that is going to be something that we're going to, again, fingers crossed, there's quite a bit of professional development for teachers, for parents as well. There's a large portion of the grant that calls for actions for parent capacity building. So building their capacity to know the system, how to use the system, and how to engage with it. And I think that's the powerful piece of the community schools. The other layer of that is, and I think this is the mindset of all of us here, is even though it's targeting several schools, we share it with all principals. So the community engagement was just 2 schools collected, but we share that information with all our principals. So actually this Thursday, I'm sharing something with family engagement, not just with certain schools, but all schools. How do we engage all families? And so that's kind of our mindset, that once we find something really good, we share it with all. We don't keep it private or just with the select few. It can benefit all. Just like with English learners, the capacity and the training, it's good for all students, because if you can raise that level of rigor for an English learner, you can also raise it for those that are not English learners. And so that's also the message that we sent with the toolkit, meeting with every teacher and every campus. It's especially good for English learners, but it's good for all students. And so that's kind of our message. When we find something that's effective, we share it with all.
If I could just add, the Family Resource Center, the one that we added at Melrose, I think needs more work. I think we need to do more for it and to build it out more. Right now it's a closet, and there's more. There's available rooms, I'm sure, at some school sites over there, either Valadez or at Melrose, or some way that we could build that out a little bit more so that it's more effective.
Yeah, and following up on that is the medical clinic. My understanding, it's never come to fruition. Is that correct?
You mean that?
At
we don't-
Melrose,
the-
at the-
is like the St. Jude Mobile Clinic, that one, or?
They were
There were a few different iterations, like health,
Yes.
Family Health Matters, or a mobile clinic, or something. It was,
It
the
was
whole
supposed to be
point
a-
was to do more and to
Oh.
bring some sort of medical.
But it
Yeah,
was
I-
supposed to be like a motor home that was going to be
Yeah,
parked
so the mobile
across-
home hasn't happened yet, but we have some data which I will share with you on what Family Health Matters has been doing for us from Michelle DeHaven. She just shared it. They just did vision screening. I mean, they're doing a lot of that, but we probably need to do a better job of sharing with you what it is that they're doing on a regular basis. In terms of the mobile unit, we don't have that yet. I mean, you may probably be able to speak to that.
I think the
Baldwin.
mobile unit was down, that's why, and I think they just barely got it up now, so,
Oh.
not too long ago, but I can find out for sure.
Yeah, can we find out
exactly.
how much,
Yeah.
if it's not back up and working,
Mhm.
how much it's gonna cost? Maybe that's something that we can help
Yeah,
invest in, so
absolutely.
that that's available for our families.
Yeah,
It
and-
could be a
can
very
pl-
simple investment.
Yeah, and I
or
think
we can
to-
plant it in the school into an open classroom, kind of like it is at Topaz.
Mirror Topaz.
Yeah, how St. Jude is over there in Topaz, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
where we-
that's
But
a
mobile isn't
different
so
clinic
bad.
model.
Mobile's
'Cause then
not
it can
bad.
go to
Mobile would be
various,
great, because
'cause
you
then
can
we
go to
have both.
different areas, right? And that would kind of hit, sort of the idea of going from parent university to sites, right? Just going to different parts of the community that's a good idea.
A blend would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that community really needs
Yeah.
medical and I just think that really needs to be a priority. We keep talking about it, and it always gets so close. But it doesn't quite ever cross the finish line. Also, I noticed in here that we're having Goal 511, Title I parent advisory groups. Is that going to just be held at Title I schools? Because we have Title I students at most of our schools. They haven't been designated at Title I, but are we reaching out to those families as well to see if they want to participate? And is that going to be done at a site level, or is that a district level?
This came about through the Community Engagement Initiative. One of the questions that was prompted for our application for the community engagement, that it's a 2-year kind of commitment, is what would you do differently to reach those families that are typically not engaged? And so we focused on the Title I schools because those are the schools and the parents that typically do not engage, or we haven't engaged them yet. And so that's our focus. We certainly can reach out to more. Next year, we are adding Tuffrey and Van Buren as Title I school sites. They'll join that. But I don't see a problem with adding more. I think it's just more, the more we engage, it would just be kind of the logistics of how do we identify a parent at a non-Title I school, but is a parent of a Title I student, because they do exist. They're district-wide, so.
I know there's some schools that are really close, and they have a large population, you know, like OCSES. They have a large contingency of students that are all in that range. So I just want to make sure that we are reaching all of our students, and they might not cross the finish line to be a Title I school, but they do have a large population that need assistance as well.
We could look to expand that advisory. And the advisory this year was more building the capacity for them to see what that would look like. And it's been very positive as far as the work that we've done with this parent group. And again, listening to them and really looking at, instead of for, but with them, and listening to what they needed. Their participation in the LCAP community forum, a lot of them came from that advisory. We invited them. We gave them homework. We asked them, bring a friend for each of your hands. So that's why you saw an increase of parent participation, because we challenged them and said, you know, this is important. You've been working with us, you know, come join and give us input. And so, but yeah, I think that's an option that we can look at.
Thank you very much.
So I have a like, go ahead.
I got startled. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
So when we're talking about these mobile home, or not mobile home, but the mobile clinics and all the community schools, my understanding is the grants for all these community schools are running out. And then also too, like when we talk about these medical clinics and we talk about all this stuff, where does this funding come from? Because I think all of our grant money from the state's running out. So where do we find, like, how do we pay for these medical clinics, and how do we pay for all of these, these expansions everybody's talking about?
I think the community schools grant, you're right, it is running. This is the last year for the application, and the funding cycle is for 5 years. So if we're funded, each of our school sites that it's awarded their grant, over the 5-year period, I believe, for example, Melrose, which is one of the smaller schools, their allocation over the 5 years is $1.1 million approximately, but it's over a 5-year period. And then after the 5-year period, really the important part of the application is, can you show sustainability? Because they didn't want you to structure many positions, and then at the end of the 5 years, what do you do? So we had to really make a case of sustainability, and I think that's what we did. So it's really about sustainability. But yeah, you're right, they are ending, but this is the final cycle, and it's a 5-year cycle.
Right, so I guess that's where I'm just asking is where it is, if it's all ending soon, I mean, and the state seems to be taking more and more money away, like who pays for the mobile clinics? Who pays for all these things for it to be on our, because it's on our campuses, with the mobile mobile home or whatever you guys were talking about, and if we start putting things like on our campuses, do we get kickbacks from like St. Jude, or how far do we take this, and like do we assume any like liability if we do like vaccinations and somebody has like a reaction? Like how does that go? And like how would we continue on? I mean, we're cutting a lot of other programs and stuff as our money runs out. So it's just a question, because I do know that all this stuff is kind of coming to an end from state.
So I'm checking right now, Trustee Blades. I've texted somebody to see, but I know we brought forward an MOU from Family Health Matters, and I want to say it was the beginning of last year, right? Right. And the MOU was that it was a grant that they have, so they wanted to pair with us. So we don't pay anything for that. So the mobile unit also, we're not offering any vaccinations or anything like that to our students. We help them and say this is where you can go, and we offer assistance, but we're not doing that. In terms of grants running out, the collaboration and partnership that we have is not based on any funding that we get. Now, they may lose funding, and then that may impact us, and we wouldn't have that any longer. But I believe I think it's like a 3-year grant. I'll have to look. I'll look back at it and get you the answer to that. But I know we just started this MOU with them for a grant that they received.
Because I know that our one school at the clinic, we do the vaccinations, and they see the doctor and stuff like that. So this would be different. We would just be setting up a mobile clinic, and they would just come in.
Yeah.
If they didn't feel good, or
well, the mobile clinic, what the intention was when we had talked about it a year ago, was we were surveying, and I think Melrose was the first school that surveyed, what is it that the community needs? And so they surveyed back, like one of the biggest things that Dr. Weber received from the survey was that they wanted women's health. And so then they wanted a dental clinic. So what we did was we provided those two things last year. The surveys this year, I know that there was dental, and I don't know whether we have that one planned, but we definitely did a lot of vision screenings. And we ended up giving away, not giving away, we ended up providing, I want to say, 57 to 75 pairs of new glasses for our students, which I'll get you that data. So it's based on a survey, and that's how personally, I feel like that's how we should be doing, is having our hand on the pulse of what our community says we need, and then providing that within reason, right? Because to go off of Trustee Quintero's comment about you have to have your basic needs met before you learn. I mean, if you can't see, you're not going to read. I mean, that is like a very clear correlation. And so that's the way we intended the mobile units to work, right? So, and as far as the when it runs out, that I'll have to check on.
Okay. I mean, the women's health, like who does the women's health serve?
The parents. So the parents wanted, women's health, and so I'm not sure what we provided for that, but that came out high on the survey. Do you remember what else? Doctor? Yeah. And then a lot of behavior stuff. When we did the family resource, what was it called? Our family summit. So our family summit, the same thing happened. And so we provided those 4 classes. One of them was I'll let you speak to it more.
So some of the classes we provided at the summit included behavioral health as well too. So screens in teens, but also how to support your child and parenting. The Narcan, naloxone as well too. So those were some of the topics that we had offered over there, but behavioral health was one of the big things. Mental health resources, where they can get those as well. Something that we will explore. If you guys remember, we talked about the CYBHI, the grant. We're going to take a look at that and see how can we incorporate some of that building structure funds that we have to help build some of that within our FRCs as well too. So it's aligning. I heard the word coherence spoken a lot here. How can we be coherent and take a look at some of this funding? Where can we build in a sustainable, reimbursable piece to it that maybe allow us to have that sustainability built in as well while serving the needs of our community. So I think that'll be important as we take a look at some of those things.
Yeah. Bless you.
And sort of on a side note that could line up with this, there are a couple of bills now in state legislature related to workforce housing development for educators and funding that we could potentially get from the state to build affordable units for our staff, which would then hopefully free up more units and build the pipeline. So as we have declining enrollment, we might have available land. Maybe that's something that we could do to look into how can we utilize that and partner with the state for funding to put more apartments or whatever so that we can support our teachers and our classified staff too.
I'm asking a serious question. Do the teachers want that?
I have no idea. I think we should investigate it because and the bill is not passed yet. It's just been put in.
Right. I'd heard about that, and I thought it was just I thought it was just an interesting concept because a lot of people don't necessarily work where live where they work. So it was just interesting to me.
Yeah,
But it's also for classified employees, so it would help, with our special education assistants, bus drivers.
Would those be built on our campuses?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, not necessarily like
Well,
next
our
to the
land.
school, our land.
Yeah.
And
This-
I don't know where that's gonna go.
This is just strange to me.
And I think with the rising housing cost as well in the area, I think that would be a huge asset. And like you said, to retain and bring in new employees and kind of help with our
Where do we
that
own
area.
vacant land?
Don't say it.
Don't say it out loud. Down the line, we might have some.
Don't say it.
Well, no, that's just intriguing. Is so we build these things and we rent them out to our employees?
Yes. Correct. Exactly.
On our land.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There's two bills that I just saw an article on yesterday, and they're slightly different. Yeah, they're new. They're just in right now. But there is some workforce development in some fashion up in Sacramento that we have access to because I know other districts around the state have done it. They've had presentations at CSBA and things related to these kind of projects. So it's not completely new. One of them I think had to do with like the interest that you get a no cost or low cost interest from the state to be able to build these. So we'll see where it goes, but I think it's worth looking into.
Okay, anyone else on goal 5? I had a bunch of other questions, but they've been answered through other conversations, so I'm skipping them.
All right.
Good job, team.
Keep it rolling. Goal 6.
Go home. Baldwin's leaving.
Goal 6, foster youth.
I think this kind of mirrors the other goals as well. A lot of the same needs, a lot of the same resources, and a lot of the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just had some questions about the mentoring. So I think it's goal 6.2. And it seems like every site has a mentor that's assigned to foster youth. Is that correct? You want to explain more? And
It would be
is
multiple, correct, if there's multiple students?
Is it like an additional duty? How is that done?
Yeah, we have our foster youth, obviously, as you know, very fluid as well too. And we have a number of foster youth throughout our district, about 102, I believe, at the last count that we had. And many of our, we've offered, obviously, mentoring is seen. Some of the research, and then just reinforced when we went to a conference recently, was a trusted adult. You know, being a trusted adult, helping us students connect, and that's really important. So our mentors, we offer opportunities for our staff to be mentors to foster youth that are on their site as well. Some are mentors to multiple students if there's more than one or two foster youth that are at those school sites. And so we've provided them a way to help and provide and be a positive role model for our foster youth. Yeah, and recently we just went to the Foster Youth Summit, so a number of our mentors went as well too, to learn more about, you know, some best practices, how we can best support our foster youth. So we want to continue to build upon that. We even have some classified staff who've been interested in being mentors as well. So it's not just teachers. We've also had some of our classified staff as well serve as mentors, and that's been really good. But we want to expand. I mean, I think we want to kind of take a look and see how can we continue to build upon this, maybe even build the capacity of our mentors to learn and get some training as well too, how to best serve our students as well. So.
It's not as extensive or the same as this, but that program that you and Gwen started, where we all, ooh, thank you, where we all have a student that we're working with. I know my student falls into two of the categories.
Yes, absolutely. So we have the program called Support One Student, and I'll let Tanya talk a little bit about that because she's really helped get that off the ground. And a lot of us here have our own mentors, one or two of them, and it's actually it's the highlight. It's been the highlight of my year, and probably a lot of us would say that here. So Tanya, you want to speak about that?
Yeah, I think it is the highlight of so many. So we started this year where many of the leaders up here at the district office have a student that they are mentoring, and the student was chosen by the principal just based on it could be attendance, it could be emotional, academics, just wanting a connection and helping to make a connection for the student. And so what happens is that many of us go out weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, and just go spend some time with the student, having lunch, just creating, again, just that bond and just a connection to school. That's a positive. We have a few that have even connected with the families and reach out, talk about homework, talk about what is needed, and then help get the supports that are needed by the family. Karina Luna in our office has done such a fantastic job of even connecting the family with just some medical, outside connections that were needed for either medical or mental health or whatever it might be. So it's been really a positive, and for us too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I actually am not sure who it's better for.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us who've been away from the site for so long, it's been so refreshing because we're with students again. Like, really, it's like we're connecting with students, and it's been, for me, it's been great. I don't know about that.
I think one of my biggest joys too was just, we had a student that had a behavior, and when the principal called, the thing was, I think the student needs somebody that, as their mentee. So instead of like, let's go to a consequence, but the student just needs somebody. So is there somebody that's available right now? So I have a new mentee and happy about it.
As I was a foster youth mentor up until a few months ago, my student moved after 3 or 4 years that I was with him. So, but it's true, we would work on some days homework. Like, I was in contact with this teacher every year. If he didn't get his homework done, we'd meet, do his homework after school. We'd read, for his reading log. Even just art project. I mean, he was in, second or third grade at the time I'm TK, so he would even wanted just to come in and, just do art projects and color, or you play Play-Doh,
Yeah.
So you're just there for their support, and it did make a huge difference. And he started having some difficulties towards the end of the year last year, but I was at least someone that they could call and, like you said, just be there, even if it was just a listening ear. But it's really a great service for the students as well, because if you have multiple siblings in a family, you have different teachers, and you also collaborate with those other teachers to see, hey, I heard about this. Did your student tell you about this? and you're able to get them, like you said, the resources and things that you need. So I think it's great. And like you said, there's classified staff, we had supervisors, New York supervisors would help,
Oh,
aides,
yeah, we've got to
teachers.
expand next year. I don't know if we can have it up here, because we had it here and
Yeah.
it was large. And, oh my gosh, Christine, remember Christina? She had the most active child. He was running around. She's like, I don't know if I can do this.
He crawled on the ground for more cookies.
Yeah, but it's nice to have
um,
them at your school
yeah.
site, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
someone you
you're
can
right.
see in the
We
hallway, you're
can
checking in
expand
on,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
See them more often, more
Yes,
easily. Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah.
it's more,
Yeah.
it's more flexible
we've got to
scheduling.
expand
And
for
at the
sure.
elementary sites, with the foster youth mentors, many of them are the counselors. So they do see them every day. They're talking to them every day, doing check-ins. Even just out on the playground, they're able to check in, see how it's going. And so that's, again, a great connection for the students.
I kind of like how you mentioned that. It just made me think of, instead of it being, I'm going to see my counselor, I'm going to see my mentor. And it just puts a different
It does put a
perspective on
different-
it.
Yes.
It does.
Well, I've kept a few students that I had in previous years, and so, you know, when I walk in, they're like pulling out their homework. Oh, you're here.
Goal 7.
What, I just wanted to point out, there's tutoring that it was mentioned, and that we're looking into a new program that'll help do some more tutoring. A number of years ago, we did online tutoring that was available, I forget what it was called, paper? That was tutoring available 24/7 for whatever the kids might need. Why, is that something we can look into, or what was the reason we dropped it?
Oh, paper.co was dropped because we, the state provided free online tutoring through like the California Libraries
So we didn't need
Association
to
of
pay
some
for
sort.
it.
So we didn't want to pay for it anymore. And then our analytics did not show that it was being utilized very often by our students. And then instead we've invested in person after-school tutoring. But for our foster youth tutoring, I believe we use Professional Tutors of America.
Yeah, we use Professional Tutors of America, but, you know, whether it's, you know, students that are McKinney-Vento or foster youth, you know, tutoring is something that we're taking a look at. And, yeah, like you said, after-school tutoring, online tutoring options. Professional Tutors of America do go to some of our group homes and give tutoring for our foster youth there as well, which is good. So we want to take a look and explore. Next year as well, too, there is attendance, new ed code for attendance recovery, which can be utilized to recover, just like Saturday school, but it's a little different, but it allows us not just to do it on Saturday, we can do it before school, after school. So we want to take a look and explore some of these options that we have available for us for next year, to expand, yeah. And we've met recently, or I met recently with Dr. Lopez as well, to look to see how we can incorporate ELOP and attendance recovery as well too. So more
That's
things
great.
to take a look at.
Certificated teacher. As long as certificated teacher there, we can recover.
So you can have one teacher there, but you can have
Mhm.
additional aides if you need to
Right.
expand that to.
All of our after-school tutoring that we've been running by our teachers, that will all count towards attendance recovery.
Oh,
starting
wow,
next year.
that's fabulous. There's another organization called School on Wheels that also does tutoring.
Yeah, and are paid.
Lot 318.
Mhm.
Just want to look at 6.3 as well, the trauma-informed practices, as we spoke of earlier. I think that's a big, huge area here and in our Goal 5 as well. I think that'll be really great for
I can
everyone.
connect you to those kind of trainings.
We did begin this year with our district-wide initiative for out-of-student services. And I always get the name wrong, even though I said it a million times, but it is Building Student Resilience in a Supportive Classroom Environment. And so we went to every school site and presented to the teachers. And, you know, the first half of it was talking about what it looks like to have, what are the key components to student resilience? And then the next part are the actions that we can do in the classroom. And so what are the things that we can do to help build that resilience? You know, recognizing students, being aware of just their background. Student voice and choice was one of them. And we went through each piece. Feedback from the staff was just amazing. They asked if we could present this to families too. So could we do something like this as a parent university? And then how can we expand on it to keep it going? So we did, I mean, from elementary up to high school, just the feedback on it was just so successful that, we're looking at how do we keep this going and kind of building upon. Because that trauma-informed piece is just, again, recognizing every student and, their needs. And we understand that maybe you can't reach every single one of them every day with that 2 by 10 and talking, but which student might need it that day. And that's the student that we want to focus on. And that we'll continue to, go through and work with each student throughout.
It's so much of the just recognizing what's happening and thinking about it in a different way. If you see a kid that's running around or crawling on the floor or doing all that, it may be because of a situation outside of their control, or that they may be living in a car, or they may, all of those things factor in. And if we don't just automatically assume it's, that kid has trouble, and really digging into what is happening and using the client-focused and trauma-based and all of that is really key. So I so am excited about that. Thank you for sharing.
All right, 7. Let's go to 7. Yes.
So one thing we haven't talked about in the other ones that as much is the chronic absenteeism, where it says here it's a major barrier for success of students in this group, and talked about some of the things that we're doing to address that. I know I've seen at different school sites that they've done their own or an attendance system and attendance rewards, but I just wanted to see as a district what we were doing.
So we've been talking a lot about chronic absenteeism, actually, and really diving into the data regarding our different student groups and how to really tailor what our plans are. I'm going to let Tanya take this. We were just talking about it more today, and I said, this is an area I think that all of us share together. It is not really with one group. I think there might be one group more than another, but we all here share this responsibility. And so I think the more we talk about it, the more we train our site leaders on it, our wellness, our counselors, and how we always talk about it takes so many people. We have to get the parents involved and classified staff involved and the principals involved. And I think this is a case where that rings true. So Tanya, maybe you want to talk about our sort of well-rounded approach to this.
So we really have started off with just those early warning signs, recognizing the students that we are seeing with that chronic absenteeism. Starting at the school site, especially with that, bringing the families in, and let's just learn again a little bit more about what's going on. What is the barrier keeping the student from attending school? Is it, lack of transportation or a lack of a need? And I've told there's a bus stop that is on the street, and so students, when it rains, they don't come to school, but we know that, and we know what's happening, and so how do we support those pieces? So learning a little bit more through that piece. We bring this information to our grade span meetings every month, and every month now we're looking at, here's your data, here's your information. We look at the student groups, we look at days, patterns, what can we see, so that the more we know, the more we can address it and the more we can support the students' needs. And again, we know each one is individual, so we want to be able to address each individual need. If we continue to see that we have the chronic absenteeism piece happening, then we're bringing them to a meeting here up at the district office with our SARB team. That does include the district attorney, and again, offering resources. What do you need to help your child attend school regularly? But it is going throughout and trying to, again, always offering those supports as we move through. We've also this year started our Attend to Achieve. I won't share it like I keep doing at every meeting. But Attend to Achieve is our attendance motto that we're going with right now. And our goal is to increase attendance by 1% at every school site, which would be 1% across the district too. And so the more, again, we can help our families to get to school and support, and that's, again, just through that communication and finding out what is needed, the mental health piece, you know, if we need to bring our counselor in to support our students. So again, having all those pieces available, but just knowing our students and knowing our families and knowing what they need. That parent engagement piece, we actually at one point created like a presentation that we could bring our families in, invite them in, and you know, we're noticing that we have quite a bit of attendance, so let's go through the importance of it and why. And so just that educating our families too.
And of course, our incentive programs
Yeah, our
too.
incentive
We're really,
program.
Yeah.
And the incentive program, we're really trying to have our our school sites come up with a program that works for them. But we are providing some funding so that they can do the prizes. I've always shared that, you know, somebody donated a big Pokemon and that drew them all in that, you know, that quarter. They were all there for that, you know, that big Pokemon thing. But just those little things that will bring them in, it's just it's Pokemon. Those incentives that bring our students in. And so through Attend to Achieve, that is part of it, is just that, again, that little bit of competition with the attendance. And then we also have the incentives to get them there. Some school sites are even doing awards just regularly, going into the classrooms, and like you've had, you know, perfect attendance, or you've missed 1 or 2 days, because if they're sick, we still want them to stay home. But, you know, just again, recognizing the ones that are making a difference.
And I think lastly, one of the things we realize is a lot of this is beyond what we can do as educators. And some of it is our ability to link to outside resources. And so once we do all that Tanya just explained, there might be instances where we have to link to a community agency that might help with other needs that are not as educationally based, that are, you know, serving as a barrier to attendance. And so we're really partnering with different agencies to make sure, is it a mental health issue? Is it a, you know, a physical health issue? What's going on, so we can help you, because it's, you know, I hate to say this, but sometimes it's out of our scope and it's not what we can do. So when that's the case, then we do our linkage, you know.
Question, how many of these instances end up in a SARB meeting? How many of those on a regular basis do you do?
We've been doing them every Wednesday, and they can go from 2 to 5 on a Wednesday. And we've had our district nurse has been there. We're having, again, the DA is there, our team is there. And again, just offering supports, trying to find out a little bit more from the families of what they need and what's the barrier that's keeping them from getting to school. And another thing that we were just looking at here too is that we did a lot of goal setting too with the school sites. So helping them create a goal to improve their attendance. Thanks.
I've seen lots of different examples of this in all the schools as I've been visiting. I just wanted to touch on the Dual Language Academy, and just to make sure, it seems like, you know, we're transitioning to high school next year. I want to make sure they have the supports there, transitioning to a different middle school. I just don't want this program to be forgotten about or set aside, and I want to make sure that we are doing everything and we're changing our models to support these students to be successful.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because we are definitely continuing to provide a big focus, not just to financial resources that we're providing to the school site, and have been doing that, specifically at Glenview and with the transition over 90-10 model. We are partnering with Orange County Department of Ed to come in, facilitate professional development sessions where all of our TK through 6 teachers are going to come together to do vision casting for this 90-10 model. And in recently working with the staff, came up with the designation for what content is going to be taught in what language, and having that continuity continue on to the middle school and at the high school, so that there is an alignment to the content area taught in a specific language. And so we have sent some of our teachers to go to neighboring school districts to get more exposure and experience to longstanding dual language programs. And so we are continuing to provide a focus. And then we've actually created, with the help of Laura Lee and others, a brochure that we are going to roll out that shows that continuity for the program across the grade spans. As well as we're working collectively on a notebook that's going to have all the components of the dual language program, from the program goals, models, resources, financial component. All of that is in the works right now, and so that will be something we'll be sharing with you all as well. And we've had parent meetings, and those are ongoing information sessions. We have a parent meeting coming up with Topaz, since Topaz is a feeder to our middle school, to talk to those families about their level of interest in having, especially for newcomers, because there's a benefit to newcomers having that content language in their first language. That we're going to be reaching out to parents on the 28th to invite them to a meeting if they're interested in joining the program at the middle school level as well.
I know when I spoke to Ms. Barton at Tuffrey, she was very excited about having the program there and looking forward to really building it out and having those families at her campus as well. So it seems like it has a good start.
Yeah, I like the idea of bringing alongside kids through the program, because it's, you know, if you missed it in, you know, kindergarten, you can come later if you have the right language skills. So I think that's very exciting. And I have my sister's grandkids all do a dual language program, and at Easter I heard all about how the 8th grader was taking their AP language class in 8th grade, and I was just like, okay, you go, girl.
They're also part of our GLAD training, so they're getting the GLAD Spanish version of it. And then the non-DLA is participating in the English, so they're part of that cohort of GLAD training as well.
As far as 7.22 with the Ethnic Studies Task Force, I just wanted to kind of see where we are with that.
All right, so as you know, we have a year-long multicultural studies course already developed, so we're well ahead of the deadline to have the course on our course catalog. We've offered it every year that we've had it since its inception. We're offering it again next year at all 4 comprehensive sites, depending on how many kids sign up for it. It's always the question mark. You can't force kids to sign up for it ahead of it being a grad rec, and it is not currently a grad rec until the class of 2930, right? So, so we're still encouraging students, right, to sign up for the multicultural year-long. Next year is the year when we will develop the semester version of it. It's still kind of an unfunded mandate at this time. It's listed as to go with the 2930 class, but until it's kind of a little bit fuzzy about whether or not we'll actually incorporate it into our grad recs.
I would like to incorporate it into our grad recs.
Yeah, I would actually say it's in there right now. We put it into
Good.
our
Yeah.
grad recs, and so it's just a matter of if the state's going to enforce it, but it's currently in our grad recs.
Good.
Anything else in Goal 7?
I just was going to bring up 7.33, the career technical education. Do we do disaggregated information on our students that are in our career technical programs, like how many are unduplicated, fosters, you know, socioeconomic, English learners?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So starting January 1st of this year, we're required to do it. So people were already asking about it, so I'll be working with the data team to disaggregate both our matriculation data and our achievement data, because there's a lot of research out there that a student that takes a CTE class is much more likely to graduate, somewhere on the order of 15 to 20% more likely to graduate with a high school diploma. So we really want to make sure that we are targeting our unduplicated pupils and those that are in the underperforming groups. And so the K-12 grant that was asked about earlier, one of the initiatives for that is to make sure that we are serving those students by making sure that they're aware of the programs, that they're enrolling, and that they're continuing on to the second year if they're interested. And so one of the things that Mr. Young has been talking with the schools about is how to develop master schedules that serve all the students so that they are available and we don't kind of get in our own way on that front. So yes, we will be tracking it, and we look forward to seeing how we're doing.
As the ROP board member, I can tell you that they do disaggregate all that. But what I will also say is that there are ambassadors, student ambassadors that come to every one of our meetings, and there's usually 4 or 5 of them that come up and talk about their experience. And they do that wherever they go. So on all of our campuses already, we have those student ambassadors that are already trained, they know how to do this, and they just haven't been asked. So maybe what we can do is tap into those classrooms that are on our campuses, find out who they are, have them come and talk when there's an assembly or something to get some more interest in those classes so that we can build that capacity within our students, one, but then within our schools and continue to grow that college career.
Yeah, that was something that, based on the request from the board last year, we were able to build into the grants. We have funds for transportation for field trips and bringing materials down, because there's nothing like providing a hands-on experience for elementary students to bring the Aztec engineering and manufacturing to life. Like, look at what they made, and the kids that really can light that spark for those students.
We do the high school showcase nights. Maybe we could do a CTE showcase night where it's just all about CTE and the different options that are available at middle and high schools.
Also, I just really like the idea of bringing it to the elementary schools so that parents tend to be a little bit more involved in elementary schools, so it's really good for them to know what options are coming up to their kids. And I saw that you guys are going to be doing that, and you talked about that as well. But, you know, even if we're having a family literacy night, that they have a table and hands-on, and they can, you know, gives the parents something to look at and to see, or back-to-school nights or open houses. I've seen the girls STEM team at Valencia. They've been at, you know, like the Jogathon or the Color Run, and you know, doing activities with the students there and really being involved with the students and helping them. So I think all those things are really important, and I can't wait to see the information there about how we are, that you share that with the board, so we make sure that our programs are being equitably served throughout the district and all kids are getting opportunities. So thank you.
For next year, we've already mapped out little infomercials and little snippets to drop into all of the elementary principals' parent newsletters, highlighting each school's program, really digestible little blurbs for them to do. And then Laura Lee's going to also dovetail off that and blast it to our social media. So there'll be a much stronger presence and awareness of our programs. I mean, we hear from other districts all the time, they're like, stop stealing our kids with all your amazing programs. And we're like, yeah, we need to advertise that more to steal more. So that's what our plan is. Yes.
We do have amazing programs.
We do.
And I think, you know, more parents need to know about them, because you start talking to them and they don't know. And they're like, I wish I would have known that, or, and so I just think we just need to do a better job. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
Our team's great. They're very modest. We got to brag a little bit more. Small piece of data, 39% of our high school students are enrolled in a CTE class. So it's incredibly common. We just got to blast it out more. So we'll be sure to do that.
We've also been working really closely with Valadez this year, as well as Melrose and Rio Vista, to have that ValTech feeder beginning much younger. So we brought the principals together, had them tour the Valencia campus and see all the different programs, and really talked about, actually, Sue Sawyer at Valadez is going to be teaching an Introduction to Arts, Media, and Entertainment course at Valadez that will count as the first year course to ValTech. So it'll be like priority admission, get one course done already. And so we're really excited to launch this next year. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yes. All right, goal 8.
Okay, before we move, I wanted to discuss mental health supports, because I feel like it's really important, and I know we have to reduce because of budget restraints, but I just want to make sure that we are doing our best to support our elementary and our middle school mental health, because if we can solve these problems early, it will really make a difference. So that's goal 7.9 if you're looking.
I would just say, we concur.
Yeah, somehow we have to solve that problem of lack of funds for that.
If the governor's May revise comes through, and Joan keeps telling me, not until the May revise can you start spending that money. But if we do get our, initial learning recovery emergency block grant allocations, that could yield more elementary counseling to bring that back, because that is one of the allowable uses of those funds.
So there's
So we
hope.
keep waiting. Yes, that and talking about ASTs back at the Title Ones at least, or where the needs assessments show that our biggest gaps are. So that's what we're waiting for, the May revise. And that money goes through 27, 28. And then CYBHI will be.
And CYBHI, yeah,
fully
we're gonna soar, yeah.
With CYBHI too, we have a need, and we'll be presenting that to you, to have a district billing administrator. This is massive. And so we're trying to find the perfect individual for this, because it's a huge responsibility in order to generate all this funding that we're anticipating. So more to come on that.
I guess it is obvious, but I'll just point it out. And for goal 8, in all of the specific schools and student groups, as we look through it, you notice the socioeconomic disadvantaged and the homeless students, and a variety of schools all over the district, and how important that is that we focus on that and improve.
I just concur, because it's not just the west side. It's everywhere, and that's why I brought up earlier, making sure we're looking at those schools for Title I and addressing those needs as well.
Yeah, looking at the percentage at the school side is, I think, incredibly important. I would have never known that OCSES had such a high population. So being able to dive into that, identify that, then you can focus on like the top 5 schools that have that largest subpopulation, and then you kind of go from there. But so incredibly important to look at that specific detail. And this one is very data heavy, so I like that.
I was looking at 8.1 about behavioral intervention at supports elementary sites. And it says all elementary schools now have an assigned full-time RBT. I went to one site and they said they were sharing one with another school. Are some shared or some, you want to go ahead and take that, Gwen?
Some are shared right now. We lost a few this year, and we have not been able to replace them. So we actually moved a few around so that they are shared.
Perfect. So the full-time is they're full-time, but they're shared then? Not like every
They're
school
shared
has
because we
one.
can't fill them.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
because
just
we-
because they're vacant.
Yeah, because they're
So the
vacant, yes.
positions are open, they're vacant, basically,
Right.
but so that we don't have schools that are uncovered, we're ending up doing some splitting. But ideally,
Our goal is
our
to
goal
have-
and the funding is allotted for an FTE at each elementary.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because the
Yeah.
wording on here says now have an assigned full-time registered behavior technician, so I wasn't just like, I was
Yeah,
like, wait a
should-
minute.
yeah,
So-
should say.
We just need to update it.
Yeah, I knew there was an
Assigned
issue there,
spot.
so that's
So,
why I wasn't
yes,
sure.
we just need to update it.
I was like, did we get more? Is that what happened? Like, did we fill it?
Did we hire over the weekend?
we need to go back and reclassify the information. Nope. We'll do that later.
Okay, 9?
All right.
9 for El Camino.
El Camino's Equity Multiplier Funds. As you can see, they're continuing a lot of the actions that they established. And the only thing that they're really adding on that's new for this coming year is they're looking at adjusting their master schedule and bell schedule. And that was actually, it came out of their model continuation school visit too. Just a really great feedback from the visiting committee saying, your students are saying the reason why they're not able to come is because they have to take the city bus, and the city bus doesn't drop them off till 9. But your school starts at 8:30, and so now they're making adjustments so that they're aligned with the city bus schedule and adding in. Oh yeah, it was just like a duh. So yes, so we are
And they're
making
adding
the
their tutoring
adding periods, before school, after, to give kids
and
more
in the middle,
flexibility,
too.
and then so good things happening there to improve the systems.
I think just like all the other areas we talked about, this is a very unique situation where you have a lot of different needs to be met. And just like you said, getting to know your students and your population would really help. But I think, everything, I was excited to see all the things that are going to be happening.
I like that we're establishing AVID now at El Camino. It makes so much sense.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it will be, the whole school will be trained by the end of this summer, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, and the EDGE class part too, the core in the morning, like you said, it makes sense. If the highest attendance is in the morning,
Yes.
you need those subjects then.
Okay.
Does El Camino have access to CTE pathways directly?
They do, yes.
How many?
Yes, they have go ahead.
They have the Raptor Rapid Design Academy. So it's a digital design academy where they have a print shop down there. And if the students want to do a work-based learning opportunity, they can actually walk up to our print shop here and see how it works. So that's available every period of the day. So depending on when the student is able to be on campus, they can join. So it's a ROP teacher that is there full-time.
Oh,
He's
that's
awesome.
a regional course? It's still offered there. And then we do offer the regional drone class after school there.
Okay.
And they'll be offering it over the summer, and I think it's almost fully enrolled already for the
Okay,
summer.
good. But just CTE at that location should be a high priority.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the desire has been, I'm trying to get to the right spot for Jeremy. The desire has been to bring cosmetology, but it's such an expensive course, but that is in high demand by the students, and so, we'll continue to explore.
That's high demand district-wide. I mean, not just El Camino, but that could be there are a lot of students I know that have interest in that.
Yes.
It is expensive,
Yes.
like auto, also
Yes.
very expensive, but a lot of that go into it.
Is that something we can partner like ROP with, like to help fund, or?
Probably not fund, but provide the teachers for it, and then they can build all of that out.
That's a pretty extensive, because my daughter was going to be going into that at Fullerton College. It's a very extensive program. It's not like a, one course a semester kind of thing. Like,
Right.
it's a big deal. So it's great. I love it.
Even if you could get a couple of classes that will help that pathway to get them in there,
Get them
even one
into
class.
Get
so
them
that-
into a program later, yeah.
Not like coming out with a cert, but coming out with some knowledge of knowing you have to. They
One
like it.
class ahead so that you can enroll sooner.
Yeah,
and
no, that would
any
be
of
great, because it's impacted. It's hard to get in.
Mm-hmm.
The other, like, from the
Dual enrollment?
Esperanza Engineering, the
Yeah.
Aztec Engineering program, like, there's things there that we could, I don't know if we can do cross-site stuff with El Camino as much, but it'd be great. The more we can do, the better. And ROPs, I'm sure got lots of stuff. So,
I've made passed on that request to our partners at Fullerton College, but like you said, it's impacted, so they're struggling to find enough instructors for their caseload, but they're like, we definitely want to offer it, we just don't have the staff right now for it, so I'm gonna keep being a squeaky wheel about that one.
I think Golden West has it too.
I can ask, there was a recent Senate bill that passed that says we can have CCAP agreements with other community colleges.
Okay.
And so those are conversations that are happening. but it's
Interesting.
very
I just-
initial, and every school district is trying to figure out
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to figure that out.
Yeah, okay, good.
We can build a salon. We can charge people to come get their hair done.
They could experiment on district staff. Get my nails done. I'll start there. My husband, he's got bald head. Okay. And our final and our
10.
newest goal, Goal 10, for the Orange County School of Computer Sciences.
I would like to see, I know they use a different ELD program than the rest of the district. I would kind of eventually, maybe at the end of next year, seeing their results with that program and then compare it to the program the rest of the district is using.
Absolutely, I would as well. No, we're very, I told Jose this from the start, I'm so curious. Yes, it's great. It's like a little pilot school where you can try all different curriculum.
Yeah,
So I
and
said,
the
yeah,
same with
let's
the
see it.
math.
Well, yes, Singapore math. I'm very excited to see. Yeah.
I'm interested in the mastery-based learning and what that could look like. I know that it gets challenging when you're looking at middle school going into high school and what does the mastery transition into when you're looking at grades and all of that kind of thing. But if we started at an earlier level, like elementary, because I don't think any elementary school kid should ever get an F. I think that we should be able to build in that mastery, and then how does that transition into maybe middle school? So I really am kind of curious as to what that potentially could look like.
Yeah. And I know it's very hard. I know some parents there that had a really hard time wrapping their head around the whole
Yes.
grading system, and I know that's why they kind of, branched off into, they transition, how to say it? Or translated into regular grades. That's what it is.
Yes.
So when parents did say the A, Bs, whatever, grades on there, but it was based off their mastery learning. So I think that helped a lot too with the whole, getting everybody from the traditional model to their model helped with that transition.
I think the point too, though, of it starting earlier so that it's not a shock going to middle
Yes.
school and having it start, but actually have matriculated into it because it starts earlier. So if we see results from that, I think we can all learn from that and maybe start it earlier.
Well, our report cards for primary are standards-based grading, and so it doesn't become achievement grades until upper. I mean, I would love for us to have a future board discussion on grading and our grading policies as a district.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, we can do standards-based, we can do case against the zeros. I mean, there's so much that we would love to talk about. I hear Leandra coming off.
Off mute.
Off mute.
Did I come off mute?
It sounded like you were getting ready to chime in.
Oh, no, I wasn't. I was just kind of listening.
No more Fs.
No, at least in elementary school.
Yes.
No, I was just, I was kind of sitting here, and as the talk is amongst town has been, to split. They want to split Placentia and Yorba into schools again. They want to go back to the two different districts. I was listening, about the OCSCS, and it seems like up until this point, I haven't heard a lot of support for the Singapore math and mastery-based learning or a lot of the programs that they're doing over there. It kind of seemed like we just let them take a lot of hits, and we didn't support them. So I'm really surprised that we're hearing such good things that, Beth Fisher implemented over there and that they put in place. But I guess another question I would have is we've talked a lot about Valadez, we've talked a lot about Melrose, Topaz, and Valencia. What are we doing for the other three high schools, and what are we doing for our Yorba Linda schools? Where's the focus coming into place? And what are we doing to OCSCS? I mean, we moved DLA out. And so I'm happy to hear that all these new, the new stuff that was happening at OCSCS, that's being supported tonight. I just wish it was supported before tonight. But I do think that it is important that we talk a little bit about what are we doing for the Yorba Linda schools, and, El Dorado High School, all these other, Esperanza, especially Esperanza needs a lot of, they could use a lot of upgrades in there. So, what are we doing for those schools so we don't feel parents at the other three high schools and all of the other elementary schools and middle schools, that they feel like their kids are getting programs as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
that was addressed in the beginning, correct, when we were talking about all the schools and what we were doing?
Yes, a lot of our focus tonight, of course, has been on the unduplicated students, but absolutely, there's a lot of exciting things happening. I was actually trying to just picture my board where I have all the different programs and innovative programs and activities that the different schools are trying to launch in the coming years. And so, for example, I know Yorba Linda Middle School is trying to launch dual enrollment at the middle school level after they went to the Schools to Watch conference and they learned about what one of the charter schools in Orange is doing. They're really excited about it, and so we've begun conversations with Joan and with Will and with Fullerton College, and they're excited to try and partner there. I know that Loanne is also very interested in exploring early college. We started to launch that at Esperanza, but there were so many programs at the school that it didn't stick, and there were some structural things that we could do better to help them get early college really off the ground if that's the direction they want to go in as they're reinventing their school. Yorba Linda High School is just doing fantastic things, period, across the board. They're not looking to bring on additional programs, but their Mustang Business Academy is thriving. Their enrollment is absolutely bursting at the seams. So we're just really proud of the work that Dr. Potter is continuing to do at the school. And then Oaks, of course, there's so much innovation that's happening there, and all the core tenets of the computer science immersion school is in place for the coming year, and we're really excited to see what it yields. I know the data that we have on this goal, it's all from when it was Bernardo, and so none of it is reflective of all the hard work of Dr. Fisher and Rachel Collins and everybody, Amanda Givens, everybody who's invested a lot of time, the staff there, in converting the school. So a lot of really neat things happening at our schools all across the district. But there has been a lot of talk tonight, of course, about our unduplicated students.
Yeah, I know, and that's fine. It's just nice to hear about all of the schools, and especially. But yeah, I'm just happy. I'm sitting here in this hotel room, and I'm happy to just hear about all of the support now tonight that OCSDS is getting with all their new things, and especially too, I really believe that parents were fleeing our district because they're looking for other things. Some of these charter schools and these private schools have to offer. So it's nice to hear that that Yorba Linda Middle is going to kind of take. I guess a cue from a charter school and try to implement things there, because I think it's important that we are diverse and that we are offering things to keep our students in our district so they don't have to go searching for someone else. And I think too, how will we validate the work of OCSCS for our community? Because it's really, I mean, if we're going to be honest, it took a lot of hits this year, and it took a lot of so how are we going to promote this work? How are we going to, the grading system is new, and Singapore Math was new, and all of the things that we're doing. So how are we going to fix it in the community now? Because obviously we're supporting it tonight. So what are we going to do to further support it?
To me, I think it's just like all the other schools, that as they come along and their test scores reflect and their data gets shown, I think that's going to be honestly the main advertisement point for them, because as you said before, we don't have that baseline data for them yet. So we don't know where they're going. We know they have potential to do well, but I think as the parents see kind of the proof is in the pudding, it's going to be more advertisement for them of their success as they go along.
I think for all of our schools, the biggest validation they get is the dashboard, and so everyone's waiting to see how that performs this year, and of course it's in the first year of this conversion too. No one's expecting there to be a miracle performed per se, but we definitely would anticipate there's going to be great strides, and we've said that all along with Dr. Fisher too. There's no way that it can't improve with the focus that they've had on instruction and meeting the needs of students. It's been really phenomenal, the conversion of the school, and so we're really interested in it. So when the data comes out, we'll be able to celebrate OCSES as well as all of our schools that are continuing to improve on behalf of their students.
I would just
And
like.
I'm really surprised too that we haven't promoted it more, especially like with our special education, like because that is an actual full inclusion model over there. And the stuff that they're doing, you know, is spectacular. And so I mean that could also be something that, you know, because I mean when the Schools to Watch came, he was so impressed by everything that was going on over there, you know, and he said every middle school, this should be the model for every middle school in the state. And so, you know, it's just talking about more and more of inclusion and, you know, how we continue to use them. I would imagine that we could also, you know, try to make that a model for our inclusion process as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Trustee Blades, because I was going to add before you just said that was that even for the grading for mastery, yes, we need the data to show, but I'd like to go to just what the research says about grading for mastery. So when done well, that's really the way we should be doing it. It's a growth mindset. We talk about increasing student motivation and engagement. We're really grading for learning, not of the learning. When we wait for those grades, it's just to see what we get versus driving, you know, what we do next. And then for inclusion, there is so much research to support inclusion. So yes, we want to see what the results are, but it's been a tumultuous year. So what I would say is, I agree that we need to see what the results are, but we also need to say, these are practices that are steeped in research that Dr. Fisher brought to that school site, and we need to really do them with fidelity. Right? And when we do them with fidelity, and so the idea is that it could be a model school, and it is where our teachers can come and observe and see some of these practices that are working well. So I think it's sort of it's a work in progress, but these two things we know work. And so I'm with you all the way. I know inclusion works. We see the results of it. We see that you know, students who are included, our students with IEPs that are included in general education, they fare better, and it's better for our general ed students and our special education students. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with the innovative practices there.
There is also data, and I can't tell you why this happened, but when I used to go visit that school, it was getting more and more difficult at break time, and you almost got the sense that the kids were getting into groups that were going to get in pretty big trouble. This past year, do you remember, Will, when you and I did that study to look at discipline where they only had one fight? One fight.
Of the discipline data, they've seen a 66% reduction
in discipline,
in suspendable offenses and pre-suspendable offenses. So they were doing great work for all the students.
Does anyone have
And
a
our enrollment, Olivia, our enrollment stayed strong at OCSDS, or did we lose some? Do we know what our enrollment is? Because I think our enrollment's higher district-wide than what was said in November, December.
It has fluctuated this year, but looking at coming in next year, it's about steady, I think, with what we are at right about now, which is about 700.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Anderson, a
Aye.
second by Mrs.
Aye.
Quintero.
Aye.
We have to
Aye.
do roll call.
Dang it. Leandra!
Mrs. Blades?
Hi.
Mrs. Blades, do you vote to adjourn? Okay.
Do you vote to adjourn, Mrs. Blades, please?
Okay, we'll skip.
Aye.
Quintero? Aye.
Oh, she's gone.
Aye.
Aye.
I am on aye. So it'll be, it's a 4-0.
Thank you all so much.